Welcome in, everybody, to the GC Live Postgame Show. What a night to remember. South Carolina does the unthinkable. They take down number 5 ranked Tennessee. They do it at home. They do things that have not been done in quite some time, too. We will get to that shortly. Let's get right to Perry Orth, though, who watched the game tonight. And, Perry, what can you say about this performance?
I tell you, it's hard to say. I've been following South Carolina football intimately since 2012, 2011. I watched the game versus Alabama where they beat them in 2010. But to not only beat the number 5 team in the country, but, it wasn't a walk-off field goal. This was an ass whipping. And the way they did it, I have to eat my own crow. People ask me all week, what do you think? And I just tell them, I just don't see a way for South Carolina to win the game. I did not. But in my defense, did you expect them to score 63 tonight after getting blanked?
Well, I went back and looked at it. For the Gamecock Central picks, my pick was South Carolina losing 38-20. Okay, I had them scoring more, I think, than the majority of my coworkers. But I say that right, 20. That's not
20,
30.
man.
That's
Not
not
60.
40. That's not 60. No one was expecting this, Perry. And I think a part of me wanted to believe that after what we saw last week, that they've had bounce back games. And I thought that maybe they'd be able to get something going, but I didn't think they'd be able to do what they did tonight.
No. The personnel packages, the way that, watching the game on TV, you listen to what Coach Beamer said, they wanted to be aggressive, and they were aggressive, and they made it really they made it really difficult on Tennessee to defend. They pushed the ball vertical from an offensive standpoint. They ran the ball when they needed to. At the end of the day, the players executed and made the plays. You could go back to any of the shows that I've done with you all day, all season, but it's a player's game. Everybody wanted to burn the ships and launch Marcus out.
Looks like Perry's having some issues right now. We'll have Perry hop back on. This place is jam-packed already. This might be one of our biggest shows that we've had all year. Joe, do we have any calls already? All right, intern Joe's working in the background. He's giving me the 1 second. Perry, I don't know if you can see on your the side the number of comments already there. This is going to be a huge, huge show tonight. All right. Christopher, you're on the GC Live Postgame Show.
Christopher.
Chris.
Hello.
All right, Chris, you know the number. Give us a call back, pal. I want to get to some of these comments, though, Perry. Okay, we're going to try to make the show tonight as much about the fans as possible because this is a night that people will remember for a long, long time. Look what happens when you throw the ball downfield. We're going to try to be short and tight with our answers tonight. Looks like we got Christopher back on. Rush ready to go, excuse me. But we'll try to keep things tight so we can get as many people on here tonight. Rush, how we doing?
Hey, man, we're doing a lot better than we were right back from Gainesville last year. That's all I got to say, man. How y'all doing tonight?
We're doing all right. No waters needed to be mixed in tonight, Rush.
Hey, no waters tonight. All I got to say is Spencer Rattler, 6 TDs, no interceptions tonight. What a performance in Williams-Brice. Just an absolute game to remember for the Gamecock Nation. All we want next week is an absolute upset against Clemson Tigers, and that's all we want. That's all I got to say tonight, fellas. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
We appreciate it, Rush. And, look, a lot of people are going to be wanting to look ahead and getting ready for this game next week against Clemson, and rightfully so. And we can talk about that a little bit. Perry, I know you're working kind of remotely, so I know you're going back and forth with us. But yeah, just real quick with Vincent before we get to the next caller here.
Yeah.
Just your thoughts on just how they attacked the game from a passing standpoint, and then we'll get to the next caller. Christopher's on the line, so we'll get to Chris in a second.
Yeah, I mean they forced Tennessee in one-on-one matchups, and they pushed the ball vertically down the field. Y'all saw it all night. I mean, they made Tennessee's secondary guard our guys in one-on-one matchups, and we won the battles. Like we haven't seen that type of vertical pass game in the last couple of years. At least I haven't. Maybe we've tried and haven't protected, but obviously, listening to Coach Beamer talk before the game, he sounded confident based on what they had seen in film. And, all week, I mean, everybody, you listen to sports talk radio, especially here in Columbia, and, the bookies came out with the line started at 19.5, I believe. And it's like 19.5. What are these guys smoking? Obviously they knew something we didn't, but the way that we executed the plays, Rattler was just on it. Probably the best single game quarterback performance ever. I mean, those performances remind me of, Jake Bentley played Clemson maybe 5 years ago, played his tail off. So, but yeah, I mean, that was 6 touchdowns against number 5 in the country. I mean, when you want to, make those big upsets, quarterback plays got to be elite. He was at Gamecocks with a top 5 program win tonight. Not Shane Beamer era, obviously that's number 1, but like when you
I don't know what's going on with Perry's connection tonight. Hopefully Perry can get that fixed. In the meantime, though, Bree is on the post-game show. Bree, how are we doing this evening?
What's up, Mike? How are you?
We're doing well tonight. We're doing well. If Perry's there,
the background too. All right, yeah, man. I've been kind of quiet. I don't know if y'all had heard over GC Live. I'm kind of starting my own thing soon, and I landed a big interview, and so I kind of been prepping for that. So I didn't do my breakdowns and stuff last week, and I did do them, but I didn't release them. Anybody would believe that after I watched the Florida game, or we watched the Florida game, that we could still do anything against Tennessee. And I don't know why I'm not as surprised. I know like everybody's surprised this week. And I was thinking after Florida, I was like, yeah, we're probably going to beat Tennessee though. It's just, the team's just inconsistent. And here's what I'm worried about, and I made it in the comments. It's like, are we going to let go of Satterfield or not? And it's not, I don't care, but I know a lot of people do. And the inconsistency, I feel there's as big of an issue out of winning tonight as there is the other way around, because what we saw is, hey, we're capable. We've got the players. They can be that explosive. Why aren't we every game? Why do we lose in Gainesville? Why do we lose Arkansas?
And Bree, I appreciate you. We're jam packed tonight, so we're going to try to keep things moving. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but kind of going off that point, there's going to be a lot of people, Perry. And we're going to try to keep things tight because I know there's so many people that have sending me messages and they're trying to get through on the line. So we're going to try to get to everybody. We're going to try to be as quick as possible tonight, but try to just a quick response to that, Perry. People are going to have questions. I know we were kind of talking about it before we hopped on, which is, why did we see what we saw tonight? Why wasn't this consistent over the last couple of weeks? I mean, I think that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear me. I mean, I've told you numerous times, man. I don't get too high after wins. I don't ever get too low after losses. We have to be able to now stack it and take another great week of practice and find a way to replicate that against Clemson. I know you've got to focus on the win that you've had tonight, but what we did offensively, I mean, it's hard to just fathom why and where that had been. Spencer Rattler played out of his mind. Juice Wells with just play after play. Mm-hmm. We didn't really have to run the ball. We pass protected well, and then Spencer Rattler was obviously putting the ball in the money. And again, like I said a few minutes ago, your quarterback performance at that level, It gives you a good shot to.
It does, and Perry dipped out again, so it's a good time to be able to finally get to Chris, and we'll add Perry back on there. Chris, what's going on here on the GC Live postgame show?
Man, I thank you for taking my call. Sorry about all the issues, but yeah, I was on here last week, man, and I went down on them. I went to the game, but this week right here, like Rattler did his job. Like that kid, like he threw the ball, he was accurate, he was good with his scrambles and all of that. And I just want to give him just the major props because we already knew that our Gamecock team had plenty of talent. It was just getting the ball to the talent to make plays. And I'm just excited. Look forward to going to Death Valley next week. Thank y'all.
I appreciate it, Chris. Again, if you guys want to call into the program, we'll get that number up for you. I mean, it is one of our busier nights tonight. I know Perry is working through some technical difficulties with the Wi-Fi bug.
Yeah, it's between the Wi-Fi and people calling me to want to talk about this freaking game is just texting and calling.
So that's why it's going black. That's why, if you guys are curious, why it keeps going black.
People are calling, asking me about the game. I'm as lost for words as everybody that's calling me. Trust me.
You mentioned, Perry, you brought something up, and I want to just share it. And people that follow Gamecock Central know that we've talked about this before. This is back in January. Okay, this is from this is January 10th. As soon as Juice Wells committed, and what a night he had. Said, quote, elite ball skills, get Shaq. The JMU coach, James Madison, used him well with bouncing him around from the slot to the outside on third down, and everyone knew on third down they were going to go to him, and yet he was comfortable being the guy. A lot of it will be how USC decides to use him and how they decide to move him around. He's absolutely a top 2-3 wide receiver in FCS who already has a high draft score. And we saw that tonight. We saw him perform tonight. Joe, do you have someone right now? Is that what you're telling me? Okay. I want to throw that to you, though, Perry, because I know you were talking about Juice Wells. Just the impact. What for a quarterback, right? It looked like tonight, and I'm not saying we haven't seen this throughout the course of the season, but it looked like tonight when they needed it down, even though Rattler did a good job of spreading the ball across the field, it seemed like Wells was that guy. Just that chemistry, that relation, and you can trust the guy like that as a former quarterback.
Well, yeah, and I mean, he found a way to get open in the zone. His runs after catch are great. He's got great hands. The play that keeps coming to mind is the game was out of hand at the end of the game, and he throws up that one-on-one shot. He clearly leaped over the defensive back and plucked it off his helmet. I mean, we hadn't really seen him do that all season, and he obviously he came to play, and he, when his number was called, he made the play. I mean, it's hard for me to sit here and even explain how and why, considering, the hard part for me is I was watching the game last Saturday in the exact same spot on my couch that I was tonight. And you look at the difference in the players and the plays and the way the team played. It leaves me speechless. It's like, I really hope that we can find a way to do it again and do it all the time. Obviously, you're not going to score 63 points every time you roll out there, but the level of attack mode that the entire team was in. I mean, you saw it from the jump. Like the first play, they threw the ball to Jalen Hyatt, and Cam Smith basically body slammed them to the ground, and there were like 3 or 4 other South Carolina players like there to help, and you kind of knew, like, man, these guys are kind of teed up a little bit. And defensively, we struggled at times, but that comes with playing that offense. And tell you, the second half, they put the clamps down and just really shut them down. So congratulations to the defensive staff for what they were able to accomplish. Going into the game, I thought, we had to get 30, at least 35 to have a chance. And 63, I mean, it's 11 o'clock now. If you would have told me at 11 o'clock today, South Carolina was going to score 63 points, I would have told you were a crackhead. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
And I'll say this, I'm going to have to go back and double check. I know there's a couple people trying to call in, and intern Joe's doing his best right now, and I can't even tell you how many comments we have. We have Sam. Sam, you're on the GC Live postgame show.
Sam, we got you, boss.
Oh, Sam or Stanley?
Stanley, sorry, my bad.
Sorry, Stanley.
No, it's okay. Oh, no, thank you for having me on. I just want to say go Gamecocks, and I was giving Satterfield a lot of crap. I was calling him Satterfield and all these sorts of things, but he really pulled through tonight, and I'm happy for the team, and let's go whip that Clemson booty next week. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and let's go Gamecocks, baby.
All right, Stanley, appreciate it. Now, look, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it right now. We'll talk more about it on Tuesday during the GC Live Talking Tuesday. There's going to be people asking that question. I don't know if Shane Beamer's press conference has started. If Joe, if you want to just keep an eye on that thing is said, or at least look at Twitter, that's going to be a question that's asked. You know, who was calling the plays tonight? From everything that we know, at least as of right now, Satterfield called the plays. So look, if that is the case, give him credit. And I think a lot of the things that we saw tonight, and we can get into it a little bit. Looks like we have another call, Perry. But a lot of things that we saw tonight were things that you discussed throughout the year. I know Michael Skarnecki has discussed. Other people, I know Savell Newton was on. We had some other people on as well, talking about just the short game, slants, quick passes. And they did that tonight, and they did it to a T. Clark's on tonight. What's going on, Clark?
You got your Clark. Hello.
Oh, wait, are you talking to me?
Yep, you're on.
Oh, no, my name's Hunter.
Hunter, sorry. Hard
Jesus, intern Joe. Back-to-back Hunter. Come out. Intern Joe.
Hunter, my
Intern
guy.
Joe. Intern Joe. That's back-to-back names. Intern Joe. When I say they don't have to mix in a water, when I say people don't have to mix in a water, I'm not talking about you. You need to mix in water. Sorry, Hunter.
It's hard to hear you.
All right,
You
Hunter.
go, Hunter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, y'all can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, man, what a great game tonight. Like, I would never, ever predict it for a 63 to a 38 game. Like, man, I was over at my uncle's house, and we were just all yelling at the TV and everything. I almost lose my voice. But, man, that was probably one of the best games I've ever watched.
We appreciate it, Hunter, or whatever intern Joe wants to call you. Perry's phone's blowing up over there. Poor guy. He's trying to juggle like 8 things at once. But Perry, not talking about intern Joe, who doesn't know how to name people. They say the name and then you say, this is the person that's on. Love intern Joe. Just the short game, though, or the passing game, just going with the short passes. I mean, what did you see tonight? Because it's easy to see that, but what made that so effective? And we know Tennessee's defense, pass defense, 7th worst in the country coming into tonight.
Yeah, I think that they just gave you the look that you want when you're playing off corners and you're given a little bit of cushion. The quick game's there. Take it. When I was in high school, I went to a football camp. Jim McElwain was leading the camp. He was the old offense coordinator at Alabama at the time, and obviously head coach at Florida. His motto was, if you take what the defense gives you, the defense will give you the game. And it was something that always stuck with me. And we did that tonight. I know people have been dying for different quick game, whether it be a hitch or slant or anything to get the ball out of his hand. And he did that. We spread the field. I don't think that we were in a ton of 13 personnel, which is 1 running back, 3 tight ends. We really went more spread, 11 and 10 personnel, spread the field, and just kind of let Rattler play his game. If you look back against Arkansas, when I thought we had one of our better offensive performances, especially when we were playing from behind, Rattler looked best when we were spreading the football out and he was pushing it down the field. He just looked more comfortable. And Rattler's a high-intensity guy. He's obviously a high-emotional guy and play with a lot of confidence. And he's somebody, as most quarterbacks are, you have to build them into the game to establish confidence so that they can go out and play in their version of reckless abandonment, which in defense it's flying around cracking heads. Quarterback, it's flying around and making throws that you're confident in making. You're not doubting yourself. You're doing everything that you need to help your offense. And we did that. He did a hell of a job of that tonight.
All right, intern Joe, you say you have Clark here. If this guy's name is not Clark, I don't know what we're going to do. Make you do up downs or something. Clark, you're on the GCI post-game show.
Mike, give Joe a little slack, buddy. But anyway, I appreciate y'all having me on. The word of the night for me is consistency. I mean, I think back to last year when we played really well offensively against Florida and Auburn, and we had a similar night tonight where we were able to, move the ball and get some things done. And I just hope that we're able to build on this and hopefully come out next week and have a little bit of consistency offensively. We know what these guys can do when they're on and they're clicking. Obviously, we can produce like we can tonight. Maybe not 60 every night, but just want to come out next week and do the same thing and just keep this thing rolling, man. Go Cox. Appreciate y'all. Everything you're doing. Go Cox.
All right. Appreciate it, Clark. Say hi to Uncle Eddie for me. Cousin Eddie. Moving things along, though, in Perry's juggling 8 things over there. We can look ahead a little bit. I mean, look, you have a win like this tonight. And you hear the chants at the end, we want Clemson, we want Clemson. We know what's gone on the last couple of years. We understand what the Tigers have done to South Carolina. 7 straight wins against them. You're able to build some momentum tonight, Perry. You have 7 wins. You're already bowl eligible. This is the first time they've had 7 wins in a regular season since Muschamp's second year. Mm-hmm. So I bring all that up because you're feeling good about yourself. And I know we've asked this question before, especially when they were having the 4-game winning streak. Next week is a totally different animal. Next week, you're going there. You haven't played in Death Valley since 2018 because of the COVID season. It took that one away in 2020. You didn't have to play at Memorial Stadium. So I bring that up because there's going to be a lot of people, and it looks like we might have another call, so I might get to that thought in just a second, Perry. This is like the fans' night. We're letting the fans speak tonight. And intern Joe is giving me the thumbs up. We got Alex. Alex, you're on the GC Live postgame show.
What's up, fellas?
How we doing?
You're able to keep your spirits up. Hello?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I hope you're able to keep your spirits up after tonight. It was, a complete shock, man. I couldn't believe what happened. I mean, I don't think it's enough to justify keeping Satterfield. But I do think it's enough to, write him a nice recommendation for whatever job that he's going to get in the future. But I think it was really gratifying, just for the guys out there, the athletes, man. They they know they've been practicing well, and I know that to them just to feel like nothing has really clicked, and then it just explodes one day, for Rattler, Josh Van, and everything just made sense. And you could actually hear like the announcer for the first time saying, "Oh yeah, look, this is this concept, and this is what happens in these 3 stages, and this is why this person becomes open." That hasn't happened all year. And on top of that, it was like a prime Pink Floyd concert for the beginning of the game. It was insane. It was a wonderful night. It was fantastic, but I'm just most happy for the coaching staff and Satterfield too. He still needs to go, but I'm happy for him too.
Well, Alex, we appreciate it. Couple of things we could talk about there, but Perry, let's go back and we'll try to keep thoughts as tight as possible because there's so many things we're trying to hit on before these calls come in. Clemson next week. What can you do to be able to carry this momentum?
I mean, you got to find a way to replicate it. Obviously, I mean, how do you capitalize on a moment like this? How do you capitalize on the confidence that you have going in? You have to have a great week of practice, and Clemson's defense is significantly better than the Tennessee defense. But pushing the ball vertically down the field and making the secondary play one-on-one games, and that is crazy. I mean, it's it's the key to success for our offense, and if we can do that, we'll have a hell of an opportunity. But I don't want to jump focus and attention to that game yet. I think that we need to enjoy, as a fan base, as media that covers the Gamecocks, we need to enjoy what took place tonight, because I mean, it doesn't happen very often. And you know, the last call I thought was super interesting. You still, the guy said, you want to fire Satterfield and leave him a good recommendation letter at his next job. That what he said was kind of funny, but in a sense of kind of going back to what my thought process on Carolina football, or football in general. You never want to get too high or too low with, depending upon how the team plays. You kind of look at the whole body of work of what we do. Now you go out and you stack good wins on top of each other, and you find a way to beat Clemson next week. Obviously you bring up new conversations about, where you are as a staff and where you are as a program or an offense or whatever. And I think the offense is going to get highlighted tonight because of the way that we played, for great reason. But defensively, the second half, I mean, I think that Tennessee scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. Talking to people all day today was, we'll be down 28-10 by the time the second quarter starts. So it's not like it would matter what happens in the second half. But because of how we played, it gave our defense the opportunity to showcase what they do. And, man, they answered the bell. They really did. And hate to see what happened to Hendon Hooker. What a special talent. Yeah, he's probably done. A non-contact move like that and your knee folds, man, not good for that young man. But hope there you go. There, yep. Am I there?
Perry's over here, man. Gamecocks win against the number 5 team in the country, and he's getting blacked out over here.
Am I here? Am I there?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay.
You're here.
It's unbelievable.
You're hanging in there. You're hanging in there, Perry. Let's do this though.
I'm battling.
Intern Joe, I don't know if you were able to find the video. I don't think I sent it to you. There is a certain video I want. I'm going to try to send it to you so we can queue it up shortly, and then we're going to queue up 2 videos. Let's queue up this video first. Oh, actually, we'll queue up this one, and this makes for great radio right now, because you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to send this to Intern Joe right now. Intern Joe's doing his best right now. And real quickly, shout out to my guy Dana Beers. He's down there, fellow masshole from Barstool. We have a mutual connection with the Frady's. I'm sure people know who Pete Frady's is. R.I.P. Ice Bucket Challenge, ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. He's down there though for Barstool, trying to find a school to commit to. And he's been good luck. Wherever he's gone to, it seems like there's always been an upset. He was at the LSU-Alabama game. I mean, wherever this guy is, there's an upset. He's going to have the time of his life. So shout out to Dana Beers, who came in. He was the good luck charm. I just sent that video to Joe, so when it's ready. Joe, we good to go? You let me know. So South Carolina upsets Tennessee tonight, as we said, okay? This is not the first time South Carolina has upsetted Tennessee at home. Let's rewind the clock to 2016. Perry Orth, still a Gamecock, and this moment happened. That is Will Mackey. There's no audio with it, but you can see him going down the field. That is Will Mackey, and if you don't know the story, Will was a student at USC. He rushed the field after South Carolina beat Tennessee in 2016, and he went up to Perry Orth. Okay? I say all that, Perry, because Will Mackey, I know he was running, Will Mackey walked so that Gamecock fans could run tonight. And they ran onto that field. They stormed it. It was absolutely incredible. I'm going to send another video on over to Intern Joe to be able to queue up so you guys can see this in case you didn't see I guess you could say the eagle eye view. You remember that night though. It was much different though. Will was by himself.
Yeah, it was by himself. And that was obviously a huge win for Will Muschamp. in his tenure at South Carolina. I know that back then they were super strict on not letting people rush the field, but I think that when people, when you have a top 5 win at home, I think it's a little bit different. So, we played well and great. It was a good memory. It's kind of crazy. Like as the years go on, it just seems kind of like a faint, almost like a dream, like it wasn't even real. But good to see us play well against Tennessee here at night.
Now, one thing I do want to bring up too, it looks like we have another phone call or we got the video ready. I really want to point out a couple players and coaches, and we'll get into it shortly, Perry. So number one, Justin Stepp, the job he did in the receiver stock blocking tonight was absolutely incredible. I know there was a lot of screen passes, short passes. They did a great job. The carry on joint, Kirk Herbstreit actually pointed out during the game, and I'm glad he did. Absolutely incredible. And we'll talk more about those players, but I want to pull this video up and show you guys what the scene was from the upper deck. And intern Joe, you can cue that video up anytime you want, bud. Seems like it's a little jumpy for whatever reason. But point being is you could see everyone running onto the field. Perry, as an alum, as someone that, and you could see the field goal post going down too.
Wow. Yeah.
As someone that, like in all seriousness, like we joke around about the sentimental stuff, but as someone that went there, and I know this is one game, right? There's been some big wins in South Carolina's history. We can go back to 2010 against Alabama. We know what that one meant. We can go back a couple years ago when South Carolina beat Georgia in 2019. That, of course, was on the road. This one tonight, though, just feels different. It's at home. It's against a team that, not like Alabama, but similar to Georgia a couple of years ago, no one gave you a shot, and you beat them. And it's not just a year where it's a throwaway year. This is win number 7. You finish now you finish now in 3rd in the SEC East, something you've only done once since 2014. So this is just the second time. As an alum, Perry, someone that helped lay down the foundation for this program, what's a moment like that, as you see, mean to you?
Well, it means that we're finally taking steps in the right direction. It means that the support is there, the finances are there, the facilities are there, the capability of getting great players is there, but to execute it and go and do it on the field is a whole nother ball game. And we were finally able to have it all come together and go and beat a rival. I hated just talking to Tennessee fans today of how confident they were that they were just going to drag the field with South Carolina. And to be honest, I don't really think a lot of us disagreed. But it was good to see us bow up. It was great because nobody outside of that building, when I say that building, the football facility with the staff and the players, thought that they even had a chance to win. And like I tell you, man, never. I didn't think there was a single chance for them to win, honest to God. And I love South Carolina more than the next guy. I did not believe that there was a way, from what I had seen through 10 games, that we would beat Tennessee based off of what I had seen in their 10 games. I mean, they went to LSU and hung 40. They hung 59 on Alabama. Like, how are we gonna limit that? How are we gonna keep up scoring that way when we didn't even score an offensive touchdown last week, and Missouri, we looked like we had never played football before. And then now we come out and we looked like Tennessee. I don't have an exact answer. But what I can tell you is that we looked schematically different offensively than we have all season. And hopefully, we've got Clemson in the bowl game, but I tell you, you win next Saturday and you cement yourself as one of the better teams that South Carolina has had here. And it's funny. That's why, again, you can't get flustered week to week. We come out 1-2, then we win 4 in a row, then we stink, and now everybody's burned the ship. Cancel the football program. Let's just focus on women's basketball. and you gotta stay even keeled. And so, as a fan base, we gotta enjoy the next couple of days, enjoy the huge win. And as players, they have to too. Nobody wants to win more than the coaches and the players. I can promise you. And the excitement and the joy and the celebration in that locker room post game. I mean, it's something that that everybody would love to be a part of. And if you've never been a part of a locker room after a big win, it's fantastic. It's one of the best and most memorable things that you'll ever do as an athlete or a coach. So kudos to them as they celebrate. But we got to enjoy it, and we'll focus on Clemson as fans here later on down the week. Great win. Seriously, speechless of how we were able to play.
Two things. Lady Bray, I'm sorry that we had to move along with the phone calls. I blame the Boston in me. This is what happens when I'm listening to Boston sports talk radio. Everything's so quick. We had a lot of calls in, and we do appreciate you. So don't think that we're trying to run you off, because you're one of the very loyal listeners, and best of luck to you as you go through your job process. You said you're getting ready for a job. Jason asked me, what is in the glass tonight? That's the beauty with Gamecock Central. As long as I'm not like a drunk buffoon, I think she's okay with everything. Well, I thought it was very fitting, since South Carolina beat Tennessee, to have some Tennessee honey whiskey. So that's what I went with tonight. A little Tennessee for the Vols. A couple things I do want to pull up or mention, Perry, and then intern Joe wants to chime in. The guy's been working like a horse over there. Nate Atkins, I cannot say enough good things about that young man. When he committed over here, when he transferred on in, his father said to me, he's like, I'm telling you, he's just not coming here to be a body. Like he can be something. And when you looked at the depth at tight end, it was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And I know that people have their perceptions about Greg Atkins. What I can tell you about Greg is he is one of the most honest, direct, loyal human beings I've ever been around. So when he told me that, I had a feeling like, all right, this kid can ball out. Now, what we've seen from him, he has done an outstanding job blocking. Outstanding job. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen him in the receiving game as well. Had some big catches tonight. He's what I would refer to as an old school blue collar tight end. Josh Van, what can you say about him tonight? We already talked about Wells. Jaheim Bell did some good things. Joyner, Mr. Do-It-All. I mean, that's just from the offensive side, Perry. The offensive line, you mentioned it earlier, the protection they gave Rattler. Is there anyone else, though, that I missed, or someone else that you want to mention? I mean, there were so many guys. Marion Brown had a couple plays where he made. I know they were backwards passes, so they went for rushes. But this team as a whole tonight, Perry, I mean, good Lord, I think at halftime, 9 different guys had receptions. Tonight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 different guys had receptions. And, of course, Wells leading the way with 11 catches for 177.
Yeah, that's how you move the ball as an offense when you're not focused and dialed in to one specific person. Move the ball incredibly well, and they disperse the ball well. You look at Atkins, like you were saying, that's great to hear. I mean, he obviously is a young man, wasn't a highly recruited guy. He came out there and tonight played well, but really has played well all season, both blocking and catching the ball at the backfield. And I really like the way that they utilized him. I like how they utilized Jaheim Bell out of the backfield too. I like how they were. What's up?
Beamer mentioned me in the post game because he said that I predicted South Carolina to cover. Oh boy. Hey, you know what? Though we appreciate it. Coach, thanks you for reading. Continue, Perry. I just saw that one. I'll have to go back and check to see if that's true.
No, dude, the great prediction there, by the way.
Yeah, great job.
I mean, and we would have been you probably would have been the only one to take that prediction.
Yeah, and look, bottom line is this. I don't think a lot of people gave South Carolina a snowball chance in hell tonight, outside of the people in that locker room. And, it's all right. It's okay to say that. As we've mentioned before on this program all season long, and Perry, I know you've mentioned some good as well. There's been some good. I think the problem is when this team's been bad, they've really been bad. And I think it just takes away from the positives that we've seen this year. I don't know what this means for next week. And like you said, we don't have to look too far ahead, but it's just like this game plan they were able to put together in 7 days. And I know a lot of people, and I'm sure it was asked even in post game. If not, it's going to be asked tomorrow night when Beamer does his weekly teleconference. And then I'm sure again on Tuesday, if it doesn't get answered in between tonight and Tuesday, who called the plays. And I'm sure what he's going to say is he'll say Satterfield. Or if he doesn't come out and directly say that, which I'm sure he will, he'll say Satterfield was very heavily involved. And I feel like that's the case. I know there's a lot of people out there that won't believe that. But to me, Perry, and you would know a hell of a lot better than me, you see patterns with certain OCs, right? And I know, from a play calling standpoint, it might be like, wait a minute. But there's things that Satterfield has tried to do this year that they did tonight. It just worked better. I don't know why that was the case, but you could see that he had his handprints on it. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, it started with protection, in my opinion. I thought that we had some plays that have taken some time to develop, and we really, just now are finding ways to protect Rattler. And then he delivered the ball on the money. He found the guys down the field that he needed to, and it was just it was kind of a perfect storm.
Perry's a popular man. Everyone's calling him tonight. It looks like Perry's dealing with some issues. We're going to have intern Joe hop on. Intern Joe, you're working your tail off tonight, bud. What does this night mean to you, buddy? Actually, you know what? Screw what it means to you. No one cares what it means to you, intern Joe. We know it means a lot to you. You're a student. But give me your thoughts on tonight's game. Put your reporter hat back on.
What a night, Mike. What a night. Honestly, Mike. Like, seriously, man. Like, if you guys see me in 5 points tonight, no, you didn't, because it is going to be a wild one down in 5 points and whatnot, and rightfully so. Mike, we saw the Spencer Rattler that, he had promised. What a game from Spencer. 30 of 37 for 438 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's insane. We saw Cam Smith, Cam Smith's redemption game. He lived up to all of the hype and more. Mike, I don't really know where to start. All of the offense was clicking on all cylinders. We hadn't seen that yet. Perry touched on it. Like, nobody knew what to expect when they started to see this. And obviously, like, Mike, we did the Twitter space at halftime and everybody was holding their breaths. And it's like, oh boy, like, don't get ahead of yourselves yet. There was still hope. And this team actually closed out the game. And it's going to be, I've seen a bunch of the comments, and especially shout out to Kyle, who said I was the hardest working intern in the game. I really appreciate that. But it is going to be huge for recruiting. Like, this win means everything to this program and everything to this city, this school. It is unbelievable. What a night to be a Gamecock. And I know this fan base really feels that. I personally feel it. I'm honored personally to be like a student here. It is an unbelievable feeling to have upset Tennessee. And words cannot really describe what is going on right now in Columbia. It's next to none. And like, all of the college football universe is looking at us right now in Columbia, and like everything is drawn here. And this was the big upset of the night. Obviously, like, the top 5, they struggled today. Today was going to be the day there was going to be an upset, and South Carolina decided, you know what, why not us? They pulled it off. And you know what? There are not going to be any waters mixed in tonight, Mike. Absolutely none. And, it is, I can already hear it. I live really close to 5 points. It is already bumping, and it's going to be a scene tonight. Like I said, if you see me in 5 points tonight, no, you didn't, because it is going to be a wild one. Absolutely wild night. What a night for South Carolina. And 63-38. Who knew, especially after Florida, who knew this was even possible? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. And the spread was 22.5, which was absolutely, fair to say going into this game. And you know what? The Gamecocks did it. They turned it around. They did it. They did what seemed to be the impossible. Spencer Rattler lived up to all the hype. And I know the fan base, I know, Mike, we've had some stuff on some of these shows where the fan base and some of the comments have been negative towards Spencer. And you know what? Tonight was all of that and more for him. He's been able to prove the doubters wrong and, do what he is known to do and step up in big games. And not only that, but put his name on the national conversation. Everybody was watching this game, and everybody was watching the Spencer Rattler show that he went out there and did. I can't talk about his numbers enough. It's insane what he did tonight. You would hope that this team is going to carry this momentum into Death Valley. And this South Carolina is well known for playing up to their competition in Death Valley. We've seen it before, the Jake Bentley throwing for 500-yard games. I don't see why Spencer Rattler can't do it again. He has proved week in and week out to do it over and over and over and over again. And he's progressed. And when I say done it over and over again, is that he's progressed. He's gotten better throughout this season, and he's just done an insane job tonight. And this is a very, very, very good statement for him, and obviously going to get him a lot of credit going into the NFL draft. But Mike, it's what a night to be a Gamecock. I'm sure this fan base feels it. I can definitely see it on Twitter. Twitter is going insane. Everybody's watching, and everybody noticed. And I know I don't want to call out any recruits in particular, but Mazio Bennett, man, I wonder what he's thinking right now. And I'm sure our guys got Dante Reno and Pop Howard are certainly blowing up his phone a little bit. So Mike, again, like I said, what a night to be a Gamecock.
Intern Joe working there, just going through some of the post-game press conference from Shane Beamer. And I don't take it as a shot to the media. I think he's 1,000% right when he says, and I'll see if I can play some of it right now, at least the audio, because I don't think we can show the video because it's still going on right now. But one thing in particular that he said, which was, at the beginning.
Game were about the worst I've ever seen.
Not a lot of people picked them to win. And
them to win this game, Mike.
Good football. I told him the story back in.
Let's see if I can find this real quick, guys.
Losing streak, and some of the seniors spoke and not listen to anyone on the outside. We talked on Tuesday morning too. No disrespect that you guys don't get to write the story of this football team. Every single person to
here we go.
Not listen to anyone on the outside. We talked on Tuesday morning too. No disrespect that you guys don't get to write the story of this football team. Every single person in here, I think, thought they knew how this game was going to go. Every person in here thought, well, we've seen this story before. How Carolina's going to finish. And it's a new Carolina, guys. You don't get to write the story. We write the story, and that's what we talked to our team about on Tuesday morning. They write the story of how this thing's going to finish. Everybody thinks they've seen this, read this book, seen this movie. They know how the chapter ends. Well, no, you don't, because I know what that team's about in that locker room, and so proud of them and so happy for them as well. So I don't know. I can keep going for hours. Y'all got questions?
And he's right. He's 1,000% right. I mean, and he gets it. It's our job to obviously follow the team and do what we can to be able to try to make predictions and stuff. And that's what makes it fun. I mean, look, doing this, South Carolina winning, and I said it earlier today, I'm sure there'd be other reporters that cover the team. Can't speak for everybody, but that you'd want to see South Carolina win. No question about it. This is more fun. This is more fun being able to sit here talking with you guys tonight, talking about a win. So look, this team, because of the inconsistencies on offense the last couple of weeks, it's really put a lot of people's minds kind of in a pretzel more than anything, just because it's just it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I think the thing that makes sense though, Joe, and it goes back to some of the things that we have talked about, and it looks like Perry is having some issues. He's going to try to hop back on if he can. The thing that makes sense, though, from what we're saying, at least it makes it a little bit more sense. When we talked about how there is talent with this team, when there's talent on the offensive side, and I said, maybe it's not SEC East talent, right, to win the SEC East yet. I think it's closer than I thought, at least after tonight. Because, and I'm sure there's going to be some people out there that will say, well, Tennessee's, they're frauds. Tennessee's still a very good team. they're still a very, very good team. They have one of the most electric offenses in all of college football. Where they were exposed tonight was on their defensive side, pass defense in particular. And what we saw tonight was a defense that just has a lot of flaws, a lot of holes in it. And the South Carolina team, like we've said, has talent. They just haven't been able to put it all together in a game like we saw tonight, especially like a game like tonight. So the fact that they were able to click on all cylinders, they were able to, first 5 possessions of the game score, that's 6-1, ran the clock out to end the half, punted on the 7th one. That's now the first drive of the second half. And I believe the 8th drive, they scored again, Joe. I believe. I could be wrong on that one. I'm trying to go back, do my best McVay here, trying to recall all the plays. But, I bring that up because I think if anything, and like we mentioned before, I think what was that number, 11? 11 receivers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 different players, including Spencer Rattler, including DeCarrion Joyner, had receptions. Okay? And it was how many times, Joe, whether it be this show, whether it be GC Live Talking Tuesdays, we've hopped on here and we've heard from people say, why isn't this guy getting the ball? Why isn't that guy getting the ball? You can't say that tonight. You cannot say that tonight. Everyone got the ball. Wells Jr., Van, Brooks, Bell, Travian Kenyon even had the ball tonight. Nate Atkins, Juju McDowell, Spencer Rattler, as we said, caught a pass on top of the phenomenal night he had, throwing the ball for over 400 yards, 438 to be exact. DeCarrion Joyner, who also played.
Mike,
Xavier
you were forgetting DK.
And then from a running standpoint too, I mean, all week we heard people yapping about Jaheim Bell can't run the ball. Why is he at running back? And it's not to say that a guy like Lavassier Carroll can't be talented. That's not to say a guy like Juju McDowell, who did have, from a statistical standpoint, from a running standpoint, it's not going to show up 3 carries for -4 yards. Some of those were swing passes, screen passes behind the line of scrimmage. But I say all that because what did Marcus Lattimore say earlier this week? He could see why Bell was back there. He could see why. And without Marshawn Lloyd, without CBS, Bell played running back. And like we mentioned earlier in the week, even though South Carolina had their way through the air on the Vols, Joe, they needed to run the football. How many times have we talked about that this year? That they want to have success in the passing game. They need to be able to run the ball to set it up. And they did that to a T tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And imagine what would have happened if they had a healthy Marshawn Lloyd and a healthy Christian Beal-Smith. I mean, it would have been, the game just would have been different in general. I mean, it's crazy. And I know, like, Mike, you touched on it. Like, on Tuesday nights, all the GC Lives, everyone's been asking, where's DeCarrion Joyner? Well, we found him. I mean, DK played a huge role in tonight's game. If the Gamecocks didn't have DeCarrion Joyner and they didn't use him, it would have been an entirely different game. So you're right, Mike. Like they utilized every weapon on the offense, and I liked what you said about them competing for an SEC East title. I mean, with this win, what it means for recruiting is so big. It is so big, Mike, because that means Beamer is going to be able to get bigger recruits in. It shows that they can compete in the SEC with the big dogs. Yeah, the Georgia loss was bad, but also Tennessee is also one of those big dogs. And you just blew them out. I guess you can call it 63-38 a blowout, but I mean, big statement win at home in an insane atmosphere at Williams-Brice. And it was just an unreal night. And it does so much for recruiting. And it gives this program another leg up. And it continues to grow the Shane Beamer era, Mike.
No, it's big. And I think too, and I see this comment from Malin. I love seeing Josh Van get involved tonight. We have missed him. Has it been the year? And I think you could say this for a lot of players, right? I think it's easy. Jaheim Bell being one of them. Josh Van. I think there's some people out there that would have liked to see DeCarrion Joyner get more involved earlier in the year. It's very fair questions. Very fair questions. We'll do that on Tuesday, though. We'll do that on Tuesday, talking about, why hasn't this been done? We'll do that on Tuesday. I do want to go back. I do want to listen to the press conference from Beamer tonight. I do want to listen to Beamer tomorrow during his teleconference. I'll be covering the Patriots in the afternoon. Beamer speaks in the evening, I think at 7:15. So I usually hop on that call. I'll ask a question or two. But I bring that up because tonight's focus should be, wow. I don't know, Joe. It would have been better to have Perry on here. But trying to rank, and people that are watching, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, we appreciate everyone watching. I'm going to ask this question, then I'm going to go do some ad reads real quick. You guys can start thinking about it. Where does this upset rank in greatest upsets in Gamecock history? Where does this upset rank? Because, again, you think about South Carolina beating Alabama in 2010. That South Carolina team, and I'm not trying to take anything away from it. That South Carolina team was loaded. We're talking guys who, Stephon Gilmore, Marcus Lattimore, Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Gurley, Mo Brown, Steven Garcia. Did I mention Alshon Jeffrey? You had talent. You had talent everywhere with that team. Everywhere. So I bring all that up because I think beating the number one team and doing something that had never been done in program history and still hasn't been done, that means something. We've heard the stories from Marcus Lattimore down in 5 points and how there was a guy that came out, I think he was playing Young Jeezy, and he came out of the car. I think it was right in front of Village Idiot. He got a baseball bat and just started blaring music and started beating the crap out of his car, or at least Marcus thinks it was his car. So I bring that up because that will be one. South Carolina beating Georgia in 2019. That was a big one. I think it kind of gets pushed to the side a little bit. And the reason being is because of the year, right? No one expected that one. I believe, depending on what book you were looking at, some had that game at 24.5. Some had it at 21.5 in terms of South Carolina being underdogs that day. And South Carolina won. So USC may have been bigger underdogs against Georgia, but I still feel like tonight, Joe, I still feel like this one is bigger than that. And then it's the coin flip. It really is. It's a coin flip because, again, talent-wise, and I know some people are going to be like, Tennessee's overrated. I get that. But I think this offense is really good. And they're going to produce a lot of NFL talent. So if it's not one, man, it's a close second, or it's 1A, 1B. I think just seeing people storm the field, all that stuff, the recent factor, you got to take that into consideration. I think sometimes people want to say it's this, and I get that. Man, I don't know. It might be this, Joe. No one gave this team a shot. But I want you to hold that thought. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're listening to this program right now, we appreciate it. It's after midnight. Happy Sunday morning. If you're drinking something, mix it on down. I'm going to do some ad reads, Joe. You see if you can find I'll go back. I'll listen to some of the Beamer stuff in a little bit. But let's do some ad reads real quick because we have some great sponsors here for Gamecock Central. We want to make sure that we're giving them their credit. And they also because they pay the bills. And talking about people that you can always count on. Liberty Tax. You can count on them. Taxiety. Limited. Tax season's right around the corner. You can never be too ready for it. Give them a call. 803-462-5576. Once again, that is Liberty Tax. Overcome your taxiety. 803-462-5576. And today's program is also brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond at the Mortgage Network. I know Perry just hopped on. I say this every time, but it's the God's honest truth. And you guys all have been able to get to know Perry over the last couple of years. At least you feel like you know Perry, because Perry's a good guy. And I can tell you that. He's a good guy. He shoots it straight. He told you that. He used Clint when he just purchased a home recently. Clint is one of the best in the business. Give him a call over at the Mortgage Network, 803-576-4450. Intern Joe, going to get you back in on this. We're going to have some thoughts from Gamecock fans on the side because I want to hear their opinion on this. I'm trying to scroll back up. I mean, we have more comments tonight than I can tell you, and we appreciate you guys. We really do. It's midnight. I know not everyone is down in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm trying to wrap this up soon. And intern Joe, if you want to go out, buddy, you go do it. I'll wrap the show up. Okay?
It's getting late, Mike. We'll see. I gotta see what the friend group's doing. We'll see, big dog.
You deserve it, okay?
Absolutely.
You only get to live college once, so I want you to go enjoy it.
Very fun.
I'm trying to see. Here we go. Getting some of these. Okay. Mark Anderson, he thinks this is second, or says it's second. Gamecock fan says second. Erlen, man, I'm grateful for Juice. So some of these won't be. Some of these will just be comments as well. Second. Top 5 for sure. Well, yeah, I think it goes without saying. I mean, unless you can think of some other wins. I mean, again, we're talking upsets. We're not talking about biggest wins because sometimes you can win. You think about Ace Sanders when South Carolina beat Georgia. I think it was back in 2012. Don't quote me on that. It's a little bit before me getting into Columbia, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to talk about. Second, this win is up there with beating number 1 Bama and number 4 Ole Miss. Yep, I believe I don't want to even take a guess on it. Again, a little before my time getting to South Carolina. New single out, Tennessee Tears by Darius Rucker. It was actually great seeing Darius tweet out. I don't know how he lost his blue check mark. I've never been one to be like, I have one, but it's like, oh, he doesn't have one. That man deserves one. If some schmuck like me has a blue check mark, he deserves one. Especially since I didn't buy mine. I'm going to throw that out there. Second, Alabama is number 1. This might be the biggest surprise upset in USC history, says Ryan. Adam, I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I, Adam. And apparently Beamer called me out and a couple other reporters, and rightfully so. I'll have to shoot him a message and say, you know what? I was dead wrong. Congratulations. Daniel says right behind number 1 Bama and number 3 Georgia. Right behind. So, again, there's going to be some people that feel this one is right behind Georgia. Me personally, I put it right in front of – and that I think that's the issue, right? Maybe, I mean, we're trying to word it. We're trying to put I'm putting people's brains in mental pretzels right now. I think when you talk about biggest upset might be South Carolina beating Georgia in 2019. Because that team, talent-wise, how that year went, that team had no business beating Georgia. No business. Now, biggest win in program history, I think Alabama is still number 1, and then this one's 2, and then you can have Georgia 3. We could put whatever way we want to phrase it. But if that makes sense, guys, right? Like that team in 2019, that team had no business beating Georgia. That number 1 team in South Carolina, the year South Carolina beat number 1 Alabama, it's not to say or trying to discredit what they did. That was absolutely incredible. And I think it might be the most meaningful, one of the biggest upsets in terms of like what the meaning was. But yeah, talent-wise, man, this one's certainly up there. This one has to be up there. When you're talking about, too, South Carolina getting to 7 wins. Like, I think that's something that should not be overlooked. 7 regular season wins, okay? And because of that 7th regular season win, it's their 4th SEC win. Now, have there been years better since then? Actually, believe it or not. There's been a couple that have been 4-4. I think the 5-3 was the year they won in 2018 or 2017, excuse me, when they is the last time they actually finished 3rd or better in the SEC East. They were 2nd that year. This is just the 3rd time. Think about that. This is just the 2nd time, just the 2nd time that South Carolina has finished in 3rd place or better in the SEC East. 2nd time. Intern Joe, what do you want to wrap up? I know you got some water in your mouth, kid.
No, it's all good. It is all good. So I guess my take on the upsets, I do agree with your take with Georgia because it is definitely more of an upset, especially to do it in Athens. Absolutely nobody expected them to win that game. but also nobody expected the Gamecocks to win this game either. So, I mean, it kind of just depends on if you factor in the home field atmosphere, Mike, but also too, I think beating Bama, especially when that was when they were peak Alabama, that team was unbelievably good and unbelievably talented. I think, also for it being the first time in program history knocking off a number one, I think that is why it trumps all. So personally, I mean, I think it's a toss-up. Like, I'm going to be lame here and just say, like, this game was tied for second. So we're going to go one being Alabama and then this one in Georgia being T2. Because you can't really – I mean, personally, I can't necessarily, stack them up against each other. But, I mean, Mike, that's my thoughts on that. And I guess my closing thoughts for you here, Mike, too, is, I think this game, like I said earlier, what a night to be a Gamecock. It really, really, really is, I guess, the biggest win of the Beamer era. It really accelerates the program onto a national level. It does amazing things for recruiting that you really just can't put into perspective yet, because you haven't necessarily you haven't seen all the flips yet. But I know guys like Mazio Bennett are watching, and Mazio Bennett is a very talented football player, and he will be a guy to watch to see if he does flip. But what a night. Cam Smith played his tail off, as well as Spencer Rattler. Like, this is the game that it was all that and more, especially for the offense, for Satterfield. Again, I loved how earlier in the show, it definitely helps with his resume going into whatever job he may pursue next. But, Mike, it's just all across the board. Excellent stuff. And I see the comment, Big Red, yes, you won Clemson after that one. Confidence at an all-time high for this program. And, rightfully so. Rightfully so. You just beat the number 5 ranked team in the country who beat Alabama earlier this year. So I don't know if by default that means we're better than Alabama. I don't know, Mike. I don't know. You be the judge of that. But, yeah, what a win. What a win.
I'm just going through right now some of the things that Beamer's saying. Just want to bring up certain things. Intern Joe's going to hop off. Joe, I'm going to give you the mic one more time. Just final thoughts on tonight's win and what this means for the program.
Yeah, Mike, it's, again, unbelievable for the program. Huge, humongous win. Really, 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 really big statement, and says a lot about Beamer, the culture, everything that's been building here in Columbia. It's not talk anymore. It is not talk anymore, Mike. It is signed, sealed, delivered. They are building something here in Columbia, and it is official. Like, this is the statement win that this program in its wee years, I guess you can say, in its growing years, in its second year, it's what this program needed. It is such a big win, and you really can't overstate it right now. And tonight, I mean, like I said, what a night to be a Gamecock. It is so big for the program and so big for the fan base, too. This fan base has waited a long time for something like this. And to have Beamer come in and there to be hope. And going into this game, there wasn't any hope. I mean, the fan base, I mean, I guess there was an general assumption that they were probably going to lose the last two. And for them to go out there tonight and do this, it's unbelievable. Like, you can't really put it into words on how much this means to the program, to the students. Like, I can feel it for sure. I'm proud of this team as a student, proud to be a part of this university, and just again, what a night.
All right, we were finally able to find it. This was the comment. I know this is coming from Hale McGranahan over at the Big Spur. Love him. Hale does a great job, and this is what was said.
I just don't pretend to, but I did pick y'all to cover. So did you? For the record. All right. I think Mike Yuba did too. I don't think Mike's in here. I think Mike did as well. Okay. But I read some of the predictions. I'm like, God Almighty, guys, we're not that bad,
Yeah, I picked him to cover, but unfortunately, dead wrong still with the prediction, Joe. Joe, you go have fun, man. You're down in Columbia. Go have fun tonight, and appreciate all you do, buddy. Intern Joe, going to go enjoy the night. Look, I'm going to try to go through some of these comments here. We can discuss what we saw tonight, of course. If you're just tuning into the program, I think you know what happened tonight. South Carolina defeats Tennessee, the number 5 ranked Vols, doing things that have not been done in South Carolina for quite some time, some milestones ever. I mentioned earlier in the game when South Carolina had 6 offensive touchdowns that you'd have to go all the way back to the Connor Shaw days when South Carolina defeated Kentucky. And I believe in that game, you have to go all the way back. I believe it was October 8th of 2011. And USC threw 5 touchdown passes, rushed for 2 more. And some guy named Connor Shaw, he had 4 touchdowns in that game. Tonight, well, Spencer Rattler threw for 6 touchdown passes. And just think about that, okay? This isn't against, because we heard this before. And no one's sitting here saying, like, because we're going to do this on Tuesday. I'm sure we're going to do it on Tuesday. That there's flaws still with this team. There's going to be questions as to why weren't they able to get some of this stuff that we saw tonight together earlier in the season. And that's all fair. It's very fair. But like we always say in games like this, when South Carolina is able to win in the manner in which they do, they weren't playing TikTok tech. They were playing a 9-1 Tennessee team, a 9-1. And while there'll be people out there, and I get it. There'll be people out there that will say this team's overrated, okay? Let's look at some of these wins that Tennessee has had this season. And I know some of these teams aren't ranked in these spots anymore. And I don't know exactly where some are now. They beat Pitt at the beginning of the season. Pitt was ranked 17th. They beat Florida, who was 20th at the time. They beat LSU, who, as we know right now, is on the outside looking at the college football playoff. If there's any team right now that is thrilled that Tennessee lost, it's LSU. No question. Alabama, we know what happened in that game. Kentucky's kind of been teeter-tottering all season long, but they handled them pretty well. And then against Georgia, a team that right now it looks like you would say, okay, we'll be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. They'll still have to play LSU in the SEC championship. But the point being is when you look at those teams, outside of what Alabama did with 49 points, and still 49, South Carolina put up more points on this Tennessee team than anyone else in the country. And they did so without their starting running back and their number 2 running back. No Marshawn Lloyd, no Christian Beal-Smith. They did it without those guys tonight. So, look, again, no one is saying that this team doesn't have flaws. No one is saying that it doesn't warrant asking questions as to why certain things weren't happening earlier in the season or why they weren't able to utilize the talent they had tonight. To the point, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, 12 different guys had receptions tonight. Of course, that includes Spencer Rattler on the trick play, throwback to the QB, and then to carry on Joyner, who, as we know, does a little bit of everything. And one thing, too, that I want to throw in there about Joyner, he did some great job out there blocking. And it's one of those things that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, as we all know, but it gets lost so much. And with this offense, and again, not saying that you have to fall in love with this offense. No one's saying that you have to love it. But as we saw tonight, and as we've seen throughout the course of the season, it just really was efficient tonight. The way this offense needs to, what they need in order to be successful, they need to have tremendous perimeter blocking. They did that tonight. The blocking was absolutely outstanding. Juice Wells, you can't say enough good things about him. 11 receptions, 177 yards receiving. And you go down the list, and the guys that just made an impact tonight. But the blocking was phenomenal. The pass protection was tremendous. Even when a guy like Eric Douglas, who is the heart and soul of that offensive line, you can throw Gwynn in there too, okay? Those 2 guys, 1A, 1B. When Douglas goes down, especially at that center position, things could have just got ugly quickly. But they didn't. And then he was able to get right back out there, which was huge. I bring these things up because Rattler deserves a lot of credit. He's been taking a lot of heat all season, some rightfully so. And as I've mentioned before, and it's ironic to say tonight, and I really don't want to get too sidetracked on the fact that they won, but if you wanted to criticize Rattler, but we're also in the same camp of criticizing the offensive coordinator, Satterfield, what I said earlier in the week was, I don't think that's fair to Rattler. All right, that's not to say that he's not accountable or should be held accountable for some of the poor decisions he's made this season. We've seen some really bad decisions from Rattler this season, and he'd be the first one to tell you that. One that really stands out to me going back to that Georgia game, and I've described it as going old school Brett Favre, going to one side of the sideline and throwing it across your body to the other side on a wheel route. They got picked off. There's been some bad throws in there, no question. But we've also discussed how if you keep saying it's the play calling, if you keep saying it's the system, right? Think about any job in life. If you feel like it's on management or wherever the case may be, how much of that can you put on the employee? And in this case, that's Rattler. I've said before that I think there's things that Satterfield does that you can see why he's trying to do it. It just hasn't worked at times. You needed a feel, you needed rhythm. Again, and I don't know if it was asked, so I apologize. I'm sure there's some people that are listening right now that listened to Beamer's press conference that just joined us a little while ago. We appreciate you. Happy Sunday morning. But I'll have to go back and listen to that. I'll have to go back and tomorrow after I cover the Patriots, heading over to Gillette in the morning, see if Kevin Harris dresses. He hasn't dressed in the last couple of weeks. It would be great to see him out there. We're going to have to wait to see. There's going to be people that want to say, okay, Satterfield wasn't calling the plays. There's nothing that tells me right now otherwise. If something was said in the press conference, then I'm wrong. But then again, it wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong today. I picked against South Carolina, even though as Beamer mentioned, I picked them to cover the spread. I say all that though because, look, it's okay to still have your feelings about something, about like whether it be the offensive coordinator, the future, the direction, all that stuff. But it's okay to be like, hey, you know what? What they did tonight, if it was sad, especially, to say, you know what? He did a good job, and these players did good things. And I bring all that up because I think, in a moment like this, and we've discussed it, and we're going to continue to go down the list trying to talk about where this game ranks in terms of greatest Gamecock wins of all time and what it means from an upset standpoint. But I feel like you need to appreciate it. And that's why tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday, wherever you listen to your Gamecock content, read whatever, that's the time to really start asking some of those questions. And I'm not trying to put it off because, as you guys know, on Tuesday night, we talk about everything. I'm going to try to get a good guess for you guys this week. I know I said that last week, but since South Carolina won, I think we might be able to do that. But I say all that because I think there's going to be a lot of people that still want to go in another direction from an offensive coordinator standpoint. And I still think it's fair. Now, we can save this question until Tuesday. South Carolina comes out and they replicate in some shape, way, or form in terms of success on offense tonight, and they beat Clemson. Does that change your opinion if you're in the move on from Satterfield camp? Think about that. Don't answer it right now. Just think about that. Going through some of these comments. Linus, this win is one for the ages. We're the underdog of all-time wins. No question about it. Lynn, I don't feel as good about tonight because I want to know where has this team been the last 10 games. I'm happy we won, but I'm kind of ticked. I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel the same way. And football is one of those funny sports. It's one of those funny sports. Obviously you think about the NFL phrase, any given Sunday. It's the same thing. High school, college, pee-wee, right? You have to bring your A game. You have to bring your A game, especially when you're coming into Columbia, South Carolina, under the lights. Last home game. I mean, you just think about that. It's the intangibles that you don't think about. You have 20 plus seniors that walked tonight playing in their last game at Williams-Brice, or at least for a lot of them, you assume. Doesn't mean they're not going to come back. There's always the possibility that some could come back. There's a possibility they might finish their college career somewhere else. Or there's a possibility they're just still deciding what they want to do next year, but they're going to walk just in case. you have added emotion. You have added adrenaline. You know what happened last week. And I'm sure this team simplified some things, believe it or not, because at times it's like, wait a minute, they threw it to 12 different guys. They had Joyner at quarterback sometimes. They threw a throwback to Spencer Rattler. I get that. But they may have simplified some things. And I'm going to be really interested to hear from Satterfield on Wednesday. Again, give credit where it's due. He called a phenomenal game. And as all we know right now is we assume, I'm sure there's some people that don't feel this way, but we assume that he called the plays tonight. I don't think that's fair to him until we hear otherwise. And as we mentioned with Perry Orth earlier, just in case you guys are hopping on, there's a lot of wrinkles. There's a lot of things this offense did tonight that has Satterfield's fingerprints on it. And what I mean by that is the style of what South Carolina was doing tonight. You could see it's been there throughout the course of the season. Now, they did different things. They took advantage of the middle of the field a little bit more. The quick game was a little bit more tonight, but we still saw plenty of screens. We saw them take advantage of the perimeter, not having two of their top running backs. No Marshawn Lloyd, no Christian Beal-Smith. And as we've mentioned before, throughout the course of the season, screen passes, short passes, that's just an extension of the run game. That's what South Carolina was able to capitalize on tonight. Those short passes, the screen passes. And as I mentioned before, give a lot of credit to Justin Stepp and those wide receivers. And I say Justin Stepp because he's coaching stock blocking, and you saw it out there tonight. And they did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. To carry on Joyner in particular really stood out to me. But there was a lot of people that did some good things tonight. A lot of good things tonight. And I know we have some people trying to call in. Phone lines are going to be off tonight because intern Joe is going down to 5 points. Pray for intern Joe that he survives. Kenneth says this is the best upset in our history. Won those other games, but this was a team with no shot stomping a mud hole and legit top 10 program. Yep. I agree. Travis says the win of the Swamp to clinch the SEC East was an upset bigger than this. I'm sure you're not the only one that will feel that way. I still feel like though, from a talent standpoint, Travis, and I know we can all, agree to disagree, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, when you have a couple upsets to talk about, that's not a bad thing, right? That means you're doing something good. You hope you can get to a point like Alabama, and I know that's kind of like the standard, but where you're not talking about upsets, you're just talking about big wins. But I want to say, though, I mean, the SEC East, and I wasn't here, okay? But what I'm trying to get at is that team was so loaded. And that's not to say this team's not talented. They won 7 games. They've won 7 games. Think about that. Right? I know I'm not trying to, be a broken record here, but how many times have we mentioned over the last couple of years with what South Carolina, where they were a couple of years ago in 2019 and 2020, 6 wins combined. 6 wins. And now in your last 2 years, you've won 14. And you still have 2 more games to go. You have Clemson, then you have a bowl game. It's not going to be easy to win in Death Valley. We mentioned that before. I've been saying that for weeks. But I'd be lying to you. If I sit here today and say, you know what, man, what we saw tonight, it makes you at least a little bit more excited about that game next week. Because it shows you that this team is capable of moving the football. Now, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about next week. I want to talk about tonight and enjoy the moment. But I think when you look at next week from a defensive matchup, you're going up against a much better defense. Much better. Tennessee's pass defense, we mentioned it during the week on Gamecock Central, 7th worst pass defense in the country. And it showed tonight. And that's not trying to take anything away from Spencer Rattler or this offense, because at the end of the day, as we saw last week against Florida, you can have one of the worst defenses in the country. But if you don't execute, it means diddly poo. South Carolina executed tonight. They executed as good as you could have hoped. Rattler, 30 for 37. 30 for 37. 438 yards, 6 touchdowns. We don't know what the future holds for Rattler. I think a lot of us assumed when he arrived at South Carolina that he would be a one and done, meaning one and done at South Carolina, of course, after transferring in from Oklahoma. The options for him will be 3 things. 1, stay at South Carolina for another year. 2, declare for the NFL. 3, transfer to another school. Now, we obviously don't know what's going to happen with Marcus Satterfield yet. And I say all that because although it was a phenomenal performance tonight, and we don't know what Shane Beamer's been thinking the last couple of weeks, I'm sure there's been a lot of heat on him. I'm sure. I mean, I could tell. Shoot, you can see it on social media. We don't know what that's going to look like quite yet. If Satterfield does get retained, does that change Rattler's opinion at all? Especially if they're able to finish the season off on a high note. Because if Satterfield's not retained, all 3 of those options are the same from an offensive play calling standpoint. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to learn a new playbook. You go to the NFL, you're going to have to learn a new playbook. You transfer, you're going to have to learn a new playbook. You get a new offensive coordinator, you're going to have to learn a new playbook. If Rattler's, if Satterfield's retained, then you don't. And I'm not saying that should be the deciding factor as to whether or not Beamer keeps Satterfield or not, but that's just something to keep in mind. So that will certainly play a role with it, I'm sure. And I'm sure how things finish for Rattler this season, right? Just looking at next week's game and then looking at the bowl game. Going through these comments, and we appreciate everyone that's still up with us. I'm sure there's some people that are tuned in down in 5 Points right now or down in the Vista at Tin Roof. I can only imagine what it's like right now down there. I would be down there with you, but I got to do a pregame show tomorrow for CBS Boston, getting ready for the Patriots. As you guys know, I'm double dipping this fall. But, man, it was a lot of fun to watch, and you guys deserve it. Like I said, Columbia deserves that. Columbia deserves that win. Big Red, will we be taken serious now, or will number 5 Tennessee now be called overrated? I'm sure there's going to be some that will call them overrated. I'm sure. But at least to me, offensively, I think that's still a very good team. I think defensively it showed tonight that they have flaws. And we saw it even against Alabama. But I think Alabama's defense isn't that great in comparison to years past. And I know, look, I try to be as unbiased as possible. I think what Josh Heupel is doing over at Tennessee, he's doing tremendous work in such a short period of time, right? Arrived there just when Shane Beamer arrived at South Carolina. He's made Tennessee relevant again. He's made Tennessee competitive again. And I think from a national media standpoint, I think a lot of people look at Heupel. They look at Tennessee and what they've been able to accomplish this season, especially their win against Alabama. I think that's the big thing because they beat the Tide for the first time in, God, over a decade. I think it will bring more credibility to this win for South Carolina. I'm sure you'll hear people say, okay, they were overrated. Yeah. But I think a lot of people still look at Tennessee. This is just my opinion on a national media standpoint and say they're still a good team. They let their guard down. In South Carolina. I don't know what the hell they had for breakfast this morning, but man, they were clicking. Linus says, Mike, this one is the biggest, my man. No one in hell gave us a chance. You heard from Beamer. When Beamer's saying that Hale and me were the only 2 people that gave him, at least had South Carolina covering the spread. That just goes to show you. I mean, really, no one gave him a shot. No one gave him a shot. I was on a couple different shows this week. Some on Gamecock Central, some on the Believe platform that we do with Marcus Lattimore. I was on another one today that does a look around the SEC on game day. The big thing I said was I felt like we would see some life in this team, that they would compete early. And as we've mentioned over the last couple weeks, going into that Kentucky game, and then obviously looking back to last season, before that against FBS teams, South Carolina has had really struggled to get out to early leads. And we saw that, of course, against Florida, Missouri, and what happens. But we have also seen against Kentucky, even though that wasn't the most offensive-driven game, especially early. They had less yards in the first half, USC that is. Less yards in the first half since what? You have to go back to the Outback Bowl, Jake Bentley and Hayden Hurst when they played Michigan to find a game like that where they weren't able to produce a lot offensively in the first half. But I think with this team, what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, they're starting to do things. I've mentioned this before. People want to use the word culture. They want to talk about changing a culture and being able to change the attitudes and this and that. One thing that I've mentioned, and it goes back to when I played college ball, and I hate doing that kind of stuff, back in my day, but going through a coaching change, there really needs to be a shift in mentality in a couple things. And one thing, as I've mentioned before, and I think back to that Texas A&M game, because I feel like a lot of fans probably felt this way, when South Carolina was up, 17-0 to start the game, and that lead slowly started to trim away, and A&M started to make a move. I was at that game. I could hear it in the crowd, talk to different people after the game. I could see it on the message board. I could see it on Twitter. There were a lot of people that said, well, here we go again. And I'm sure there's people that are watching right now. We appreciate it, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter this evening. There were probably a lot of people that said, here we go again. That's a real feeling that players feel too. It's a real feeling. And you need to be able to find ways to overcome that. And the only way you overcome that is being in situations like that and winning. I'm sure there was moments like that tonight, right? Tennessee, second drive of the second half. They go down, they score. Right before the half, tip pass. Could have been intercepted. Score. And now they're starting to slowly come back into this game. And I'm sure there were people, some, even though it was a little bit bigger of a lead, I'm sure there were some people out there that felt, here we go again. Here we go again. And, oh my, I'll have to show this picture. I'm sure there were a lot of people that said, like, this is going to happen. I want to show this. This is really bad. This is the bushes out at Williams-Brice right now in the end zones. Gone. That is from our good friend Justin King. The shrubs, if you will. But I mentioned that. And the other thing I mentioned, too, is when you win a big game, and this is something we can talk about more on Tuesday, when you win a big game, being able to flush it and move on. I don't think South Carolina is there yet. And that's why right now I'd still lean to take Clemson. And I don't want to, be the Debbie Downer tonight, but that's something that they're still trying to overcome. And much like we discussed before with being able to be in situations where you have a lead and that lead slowly starts to disappear, and you start getting that mindset as a player of like, you know what? It's all right. Another Clemson comparison. How many times have we seen Clemson in some of these games over the last couple of years where they're down a lot and it looks like they're going to blow it. But I'm sure a lot of you think the same way that I've thought, which is they're going to find a way to come back. Right? Oh, they got that horseshoe up their ass. They're going to find a way. That's what Clemson does. South Carolina is trying to get to that point. It's a real feeling. And I think being able to get a win like tonight, because again, even though at the end of the day, and you look at that final score was a blowout, there were moments where Tennessee was coming back. And because of situations, whether it be the Tennessee game, whether it be the Texas A&M game this season, and then you can even go back last year You can mention Georgia State as well, week 1. You can go back last year, ECU, Vanderbilt. Finding ways to win when it looks like the game is getting away from you. That's a real thing. And I think this team's starting to get better with that. It just doesn't happen overnight, though. So that's one example. And then being able to play with a lead, that's something else. And then, of course, like I said, getting a big win, moving on to the next week, and how they can do that. Brandon goes, I'm so glad we got this win, but I don't want to get our heads too big. We got blown out by Missouri a week ago. Just keep moving forward, be humble. No question. No question. And I think that's everything that we just discussed right there. Everything that we just discussed. Humble pie, move forward. No question about it. And I know we're behind on some of these comments here. You appreciate it. I mean, I think there's been over 500 comments sent in tonight. So we appreciate that. Something like that. Trying to keep up with the numbers here. People, and the predictions have been funny. The predictions have been funny. I mean, we can laugh at ourselves, right? We can laugh at ourselves. And there's Hudson. And Hudson, I'm going to take your word for it because I didn't listen to Beamer's full press conference yet. I've listened to bits and parts. Beamer said it was sad. And I know you said you're not convinced. I'm sure there's other people that don't feel convinced either. I'm going to do a deep dive. I'll find out over the next 24, 48 hours. And then on Tuesday, we'll discuss. But I'm telling you, based on some of the things we saw tonight, and even though I get it, some added wrinkles in there when we're talking about the short game, short passing game, and quick slants, curls, all that kind of stuff. It didn't look exactly what Satterfield has been calling this year. I'm telling you, though, his handprints were on this tonight. And I have a feeling that Sat was the one calling the plays. And I think we deserve to at least give him the benefit of the doubt until we're told otherwise. That doesn't mean you have to, again, fall in love with the offense, like what there's. But we can talk about that another day. Enjoy the win. But I think when credit deserves to be given, should be given. See another prediction there, 63-38. No one was saying Tennessee was overrated when they beat Alabama. This was a real win and an incredible showcase of our offensive talent. Congrats to Sat because the offense finally executed. No question about it. God loves comics. You hit the nail right in the head. Hit the nail right in the head. Skull says Rattler looked like the Heisman player at OU. No question. No question. And even the greats like Tom Brady, you need to be able to have guys around you that can do their job. As simply put, do your job. Offensive line did its job. Guys were making catches tonight. The run game, outstanding once again, even without your top 2 running backs. No Marshawn Lloyd, no Christian Bale-Smith, no problem. No problem. This team rushed for over 150 yards tonight. 150 yards. Rushed for 153, okay? The average per touch, and that's something I always look at. 38 touches, right? 38 carries. And again, if we go back and we watch the film, some of those weren't design runs. Some of those were screen passes, swing passes, and they were thrown backwards, so they count as a lateral. But still, as we've mentioned before, passes like that's all an extension of the run game anyway, regardless if you tally it up as a carry or tally it up as a reception. 4 yards per carry. 4 yards. So I was not great at math, but do the math here with me. First down. You run the ball for 4 yards. What is it? 2nd and 6. 2nd and 6. You run the ball again. What is it? 3rd and 2. You run the ball again. What is it? First down. That's usually how I think about situations like that. I know it's, Tennessee could do the same. Well, Tennessee rushed for 152 yards on 28 carries. They averaged 5.4. We can do this all night, okay? But the point being is, and for Tennessee, 38 points, I know maybe their standard, maybe a little bit lower than they usually, but the point being is it's still a good night offensively. There's still things from a defensive standpoint that South Carolina needs to tighten up. No question about it. No question about it. However, and I said this at halftime during one of our, I think we did a Twitter space. When you're going up against a team like Tennessee, they're gonna get theirs. They're going to get theirs. They have too many talented wide receivers. We hear so much about Jalen Hyatt. Hyatt tonight, 6 catches, 65 yards. And I know there was a lot of people that were that took offense to some of the comments he made on the Rich Eisen show. I had no issues with it. And if I was a Gamecock fan, I would have no issues with it. I understand Beamer and that coaching staff. They were not here. In getting that narrative out there, or at least pushing to make sure that narrative did not extend, is important from a recruiting standpoint because there's going to be people that think Beamer didn't recruit him. I get that part. If that's why you're frustrated, totally get it. But honestly, he's someone that's, you're a football player. You're an athlete. Anyone that played sports on any level, they know that if you try to find some type of added motivation, you're going to take it. And I think for Hyatt, having covered him, I don't know him super well, but having covered him, he's a kid that is humble. He's a kid that comes from a good family. I'm sure it was just added motivation tonight more than anything. So I wouldn't take it personally. But again, a lot of good receivers out there. Tillman, 9 catches, 81 yards. White, 5 receptions, 96 yards. And yet I say all this because the job that Cam Smith did tonight, I understand Tillman scored a touchdown on him. All right, Tillman, you can tap your head. You can do all that. Great. Caught it off. Great. Fantastic. What Cam Smith was being asked to do, and I'll have to go back and watch the tape. I want to say he was on the outside for most of the night. I know at times, though, that he was inside. I've brought this up before. Playing inside, playing that nickel spot in comparison to playing on the outside, it's like playing 2 totally different positions. 2 totally different positions. So to not only do a freaking good job tonight on that, good job. Even DJ Swearinger, I think I put a tweet out saying that he's playing with swagger that reminds me of Swearinger. Swearinger recognized that as well. He did it to me, and people say defensive back. No. Nickel and corner, totally different positions. They're all part of the cornerback family, but totally different. The angles, the cuts, the release, the timing when the ball comes out from QB to the target, it's all different. All different. You don't have as much room to work with sometimes if you're on the boundary side, right? You're closest to the sideline. You have that extra defender, the 12th man, if you will. Depending on where you are in the field, you're going to have a lot of space. If you're on that outside, you understand, okay, if he wants to outcut, we can give ourselves some time. Plus, if we're on the perimeter, we're on the boundary, quarterback's throwing the ball, it's going to take a little bit longer depending on where it is, right? If he's on the side of the field, you're on the boundary, working with a ton of field, it's going to take a little bit longer. Short side, though, boundary, ball's going to come out a little bit quicker. What else do we got here? Well, I've seen Kerryon Joyner, Juju, and Jaheim get a chance to show what they do. Absolutely. I loved it. And I loved how Joyner was used tonight. I really do. If I could critique a little bit, even though you really didn't need it tonight. The only thing I would say about Joyner is I would like at times for them to incorporate throws a little bit sooner into his arsenal. I know he had 1 pass tonight, but I feel like at times it becomes like, okay, it seems like it's just going to be Wildcat. You've seen what he can do from a passing standpoint. And I feel like the more you do, and that's the other thing too. Let's not lose sight of this, okay? Let's not lose sight on this. What they did tonight, especially the different guys that had success and, going out there with Joyner throwing the ball around a little bit, 1 for 1 for passing. What this does now is it puts extra tape out there. It puts extra tape out there. And what it's also going to do now is Clemson's going to have to spend more time on certain things. 12 different people had receptions tonight. Think about that. I'll have to go back to see when the last time that's happened at Celtic. 12. Again, if you just hopped onto the show, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, the people that have been yapping all year, why isn't this guy getting the ball? Why isn't that guy getting the ball? Everyone got freaking touches tonight. Everyone. Even Nate Atkins, who, by the way, and I said this during the game, quietly, he might be having one of the most underrated seasons on this Gamecock team. Blue-collared, old-school tight end. He's done a tremendous job blocking this season, which I think at times has led to a, why isn't Bell out there? But that's a story for another day. But doing a good job with that. And to the point, too, where he's also making an impact in the receiving game. We saw that tonight. I know there's some people, I'm trying to get caught up with some of the messages here. Talking about Satterfield. Yeah, look, again, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what happens after the Clemson game. If you had to ask me today, I think it's still leaning towards him not coming back or being retained, I should say. But we'll have to wait and see. I think, look, and I not to get too off subject, it's not apples to apples, but, look, like Frank Martin, right? Frank Martin's at UMass now. I know there's some people that are still upset with Frank. I bring up the Frank comparison because, look, Satterfield leaves here. What you're hoping for in a perfect world, South Carolina finishes the year strong. They're able to beat Clemson. They're able to win whatever bowl game. They get 9 wins. And if you're still in the camp of, okay, you want to move on from Satterfield. Okay. What he's doing right now is going to help him in that next opportunity. Should wish well for the guy. At least that's how I think. No ill will. If he's not able to put it together here from a consistency standpoint, and Beamer feels like it's time to go in another direction, regardless of how these next 2 games pan out, then you do that. Yeah, look, and Zach called a great game. He called a great game. I'll tell you right now, the person that's going to be sleeping the best tonight, I'm sure Beamer's one of them, but the person that's going to be sleeping well tonight is going to be Marcus Satterfield. Just getting a message here. Just wanted to double check it. Just it's incredible. I mean, I'm getting pictures and videos sent to me about what it looks like in 5 points. And I said this earlier. You guys deserve this. You guys deserve this. Absolutely incredible evening. And I think too, this is something that we talk from a recruiting standpoint. Nights like tonight shouldn't be overlooked, the fact that you had a bunch of recruits there and you have opportunities to still land some very big commits, right? I know it's been a roller coaster of a season. I know there's been some highs. I know there's been some lows. And as Gamecock fans, as you guys are, you understand that a hell of a lot better than me. I just covered the team. Okay. Grew up in Boston, but I've been down there enough to know that there's been more lows than highs, at least in recent years. I bring all that up because a night like tonight, and you think about with Beamer, and we talk about, right, some things I feel like they get cliched sometimes talking about, okay, are they ahead of schedule? Where are they right now? I feel like this team is ahead of schedule, and I've said that before, but I also think, as we get our Tennessee whiskey here in honor of Tennessee, might not want to be drinking too much more of this. Got to get up early in the morning, go to Gillette, cover the Pats. It's warm now too. Ooh. But being able to get a win like this tonight, the impact it can have from a recruiting standpoint. So I think, looking, speaking of recruiting, Dana Beers was there tonight. Good luck charm, fellow masshole. I wasn't there tonight. I was 2-0 this season. Sent down another masshole. He was able to go down there and take it all in. And I'm bummed I'm not there. But, man, what a night it is for you guys. What a night. Look, again, some things that we mentioned before. South Carolina now finishes in 3rd place in the SEC East. That's where I had them finishing. I actually, believe it or not, at the beginning of the season, I never expected Tennessee to have the type of year they did. I had South Carolina beating Tennessee and still finishing behind Tennessee. I did not pick them to win tonight, though, going into tonight's game. I don't think a lot of people did. And that's why Beamer mentioned what he said before the game. But I bring all that up because to do that, to get to third place, I know for some people it might be like, third place. Okay, I understand. But when you look at the history of South Carolina, especially in recent years, this is just the second time since 2014. Let me say that again. This is just the second time since 2014 that South Carolina has finished a season in third place or better in the SEC East. Okay? Third time. So I bring that up. And I want to double check something too. This Gamecock team, when you look at what they have been able to accomplish, over the last couple of years, they've been able to do some really good things. In a short period of time. And I feel like what Beamer is trying to do is trying to just get this thing on a track to a point where you can be like, hey, look, it's not just smoke and mirror. It's not everything I'm trying to just say. There's some validity to it. In nights like tonight, right? Think about it. They were able to put up 60-plus points on a team that's in the top 5. That's never happened before in program history, number one. They beat Texas A&M, who, A&M's not having the best year. We know that. First time, program history. They beat Kentucky, ending a streak, decade. And they did it in Lexington. You seeing this pattern now? There's a lot of firsts this season. That's not to say there's no flaws with this team. That's not to say this team doesn't have any areas to improve on. They have plenty. But I think it's okay to look at and be like, all right, you know what? This team is ahead of schedule in a lot of sense, whatever way you want to look at it. And the other thing, too, is they're doing it against the competition that when you talk about from a recruiting standpoint, the schools that you're going up against. So to be able to do this against Kentucky, does that mean they're going to, win the recruiting battle with them this year? No, I'm not saying that. Obviously, Tennessee has some big recruits coming on in. But it's the beginning point. And when you're trying to create something, especially from the foundation, which it still is, and I don't know how many years that foundation is going to take to fully be built, how long it's going to take. We're in year 2. But to get to a point now where you're able to do a lot of things like I said, beat Texas A&M, who you've been playing regularly over the last couple of years, even though they're in the West. You beat Kentucky, who has been a thorn in your backside the last couple of years, for nearly the last decade. Okay? You beat them. Again, South Carolina finishes third in the SEC East. You don't beat Kentucky, you don't finish third in the SEC East. You finished ahead of them. Florida, okay, you lost to them. Florida's still behind you from a standing standpoint, but you still have to do better things if you want to make sure that you finish ahead of them in the division and also in the recruiting battle. Because as we saw this year from Shane Beamer, and it feels like what he's trying to do is he's trying to replicate a lot of things that Steve Spurrier did in the blueprint that he essentially left him, if you will. They went into the state of Florida and they did a tremendous job of being able to take a lot of talented players from the Sunshine State. If you go back and you look at what South Carolina has been able to achieve so far from a recruiting standpoint, you can tell it's very similar, right? Or at least it's the building point, the building block point of trying to replicate that. Grayson Howard, Jacksonville, Florida. It's a 4-star for you, right? Keep going down the list. some more players for South Carolina. Fort Myers, Kelton Henderson, wide receiver, 4-star. Okay. Connor Cox, tight end, 3-star, Jacksonville, Florida. Perry, Florida. Cameron Upshaw, safety. Then, of course, they lost the linebacker a little bit earlier in Robinson, who originally committed to South Carolina and then flipped to Florida. I bring all this up because you need to have a starting point. You need to have a starting point. And then once you have that starting point, you need to be consistent with it. You need to continue to beat them. We can look at Georgia, for example, right? Georgia's recruiting on a national level. They can go wherever the hell they want from a recruiting standpoint. They can. South Carolina's trying to get to that point. Just call a spade a spade. They're trying to get to that point. And in order to do that, when you want to be able to go into different places, not saying that you can't, because clearly with South Carolina losing to Florida, they're still going to be landing some guys in Florida. But the point being is it helps you. It helps. It can't hurt. It can't hurt. You beat a Kentucky and you continue to beat Kentucky year after year after year. How's Kentucky going to be able to compete with you? They're not. And that's why for the last couple of years, and give Kentucky credit, Kentucky was able to do a good job. And that's why for a lot of those years, as we mentioned before, not being able to finish third in the SEC East for a long period of time, that's why Kentucky was able to finish a lot of those years ahead of you. You beat Kentucky this year. You finished ahead of Kentucky this year. It's not a coincidence. And when you are trying to be able to build this, you need to continue to find ways to do that so that, like we said before, the smoke, the mirrors, all that kind of stuff, it's like, it's not just things that you're saying as a program, as a coach, as a recruiter. You're able to point back and be like, this is what we've done. You're from the state of Kentucky, you're from the state of Florida, you're from the state of wherever, Georgia. When you're able to beat a team consistently in a state, it will make it easier from a recruiting standpoint. That's more so something I could talk about on Tuesday. Probably wrap things up in a little bit, going late here. We got more people hopping on, though. It's 1 a.m. I can only imagine that there has been 0 waters mixed in tonight. But you know what, though? No waters need to be mixed in tonight. And I hope you guys are all having a great night tonight. South Carolina, if you're just joining us tonight, we appreciate you hopping on, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth was on with us a little bit earlier. Intern Joe told him to go out there, go enjoy the win, because he's a student. Wayne Lee, who do you think was calling the plays tonight? Satterfield. Until I hear otherwise, and I will do a deep dive for you. That is my promise. People that have been following my coverage, I hope you guys trust me that I will do a deep dive and I will find out what's going on. But I have a very, very, very strong feeling that it was Satterfield. That is why I say tonight, again, you don't have to like Satterfield as a play caller. You don't have to like what they've been doing schematically for the majority of the season. No one's asking you to do that. But I think Satterfield or whoever the case would be, whether it be another school, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And based on some of the things we saw tonight with the screens, it had Satterfield's fingerprints on it. That is why, and again, I haven't heard otherwise. I'm pretty locked in with the team. I haven't heard anything else right now. If anything else, I'll let you know on Tuesday when we do GC Live Talk on Tuesdays. But everything that it looks like Satterfield's calling it. That's why you should give him the benefit of the doubt. Big shout out to Cam Smith. No question about it. Cam did great. Tillman had that touchdown on him. But like we mentioned before, when you go up against a talented wide receiving core like Tennessee, it's not just Jalen Hyatt, and give him a lot of credit. He's a very talented wide receiver. But when you go up against a team like that, they're going to get theirs at some point. They're going to get theirs at some point, and they're going to make some plays. Come on, Blaine. We'll wait. We'll wait. There's going to be all these rumors out there. Can we at least flush Clemson? I'll tell you what. Shane Beamer beats Clemson. He wins 8 games in the regular season in his second year at South Carolina, and they beat Clemson. I don't know what bowl game you're looking at then. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more people saying, well, why didn't they beat Missouri? Why didn't they beat Florida? At the end of the day, just take what you get, okay? We can worry about that in the offseason. But if you beat Clemson, number one, you're going to go to a good bowl game. But more importantly, for a lot of you Gamecock fans out there, you're going to be able to say, shoot, streak's over. And I think more than anything, it goes back to what we were talking about before. You're able to get a win like that. You're talking about first or things that haven't been done here in a long time. Being able to beat Clemson, I mean, I don't need to tell you guys that it means something. It means a lot. And I know on the Gamecock Central Insider Forum, there's been some people saying, like, especially with the SEC, the uncertainty of what it's going to look like from a scheduling standpoint with how the conference might be structured. Is it even worth playing Clemson? And again, as I brought up, as an outsider, that game's important. That game's important. And I think you need to continue to play that game. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We have so many people trying to call in right now on this show, and I'm so sorry that intern Joe. I gave him the rest of the night off. He's a senior. I want him to be able to enjoy this. Ross says, glad we kept our foot on the gas. Got to have that mentality. No question about it. And that was something that worried me in the second half with this team. What were we going to see from South Carolina from an offensive standpoint? Because now you're up. And like we mentioned before, some of the challenges that you go through in terms of a mentality standpoint, right? When you're up big and that lead starts to disappear. We mentioned it with the A&M game. We mentioned it with the Kentucky game. How does your team respond? Because that's a real feeling. That feeling that fans feel, which is, oh boy, here we go again. That's a feeling that players feel. And it feels like South Carolina has done a great job of overcoming that. Also here, and that goes back to the mentality standpoint with keeping your foot down. It's like, yeah, that's also something that's like, hey, you know what? Let's keep it going. Tennessee band played Rocky Tower during Sandstorm at the opener. Hey, it's college football. Bands will be bands. I don't know if you guys saw it today. UMass was playing Texas A&M, and some of the players ran down to the prayer. They fired the cannon right in their face. It was, depending on, again, you're not there at the scene. I don't cover those two teams. UMass will show highlights at the CBS Boston station, but I'm not out there every day. I'd be interested to know if they were given a heads up. It seemed like, depending on what you were reading on social media, they were. Yeah, Cam Smith was phenomenal. And so was Rattler. 6 touchdown passes. Came in tonight with 8 touchdown passes all season. Had 6 tonight. Had 6. Brandon says, fans took matters into their own hands. We're sick of the bad officiating. Do not condone, however, effective. The officiating? I mean, if we're talking about I'm sure there's multiple things that you're upset about, assuming that, Brandon. If we're talking about the Nick Eamon-Worry hit, I think the issue is with the Nick Eamon-Worry, and let me say this first and foremost, because it took place in the first half, and I put this out there, some of you guys already know this, some of you might be curious, because that happened in the first half, that personal foul, Nick missed the remainder of the first half, and he missed the second half. That means he is eligible to play the entirety of the Clemson game. If that personal foul, if that targeting, right, getting ejected, if that had took place in the second half, he would have had to miss the first half of the Clemson game. That's not the case. So let me just throw that out there. So Nick will be back. And as I mentioned before, it is a very difficult task to ask some of these safeties, especially being as thin as you are at that position right now. It's when you lose Nick to be thrown in there and try to stop one of the best offenses in the country. And I know, look, again, I'm going to be as unbiased as I can. Based on the letter of the law, and I'm not saying I agree with it, it was the proper call. It was the proper call as Nick got ejected with targeting. And as someone that played defensive back in college, especially around that time period when they started to enforce targeting, and they made that part of the game where you get ejected, I'm usually going to side with the defensive back because it's very difficult. It's a bang play. Like, what do you expect a defensive player to do? And I know people are going to say, well, he dropped his head. It all depends the way you're, it's not in that position where you're going. I mean, it's tough to keep your head up. You never want to see someone get paralyzed. I've seen that happen with teammates before. I have a buddy in high school that's still in a wheelchair because of it. But I just think it's especially with the Division I level, when you have instant replay, I think you got to just use common sense too as an official and with officiating with the SEC and just college football as a whole. What's the intent? Is the intent there? I think intent's a big part of it. We have, for years you'd have running into the kicker and roughing the kicker, right? 5 yards versus 15. I'm not saying that you'll be able to do something similar to that in terms of the yardage, but I think what I've looked at kind of like with basketball, flagrant 1, flagrant 2. Right? If you have a flagrant 1, what happens? You get hit with the if you get flagrant 2, you're ejected. I think there needs to be something like that as far as targeting, because it's not fair to the player. The offense already has so much from an advantage standpoint. And again, it's a bang play, and you're in the middle of the field. It's not like you're running down. And he's trying to, and I'm sure I haven't looked at the comments because I'm trying to catch up here. About 20 minutes behind now. But you're talking about, okay, a defenseless receiver. Well, is the defensive back not defenseless too? He's out there. I just think, we're supposed to let him catch the ball? I mean, come on. But the good thing is Nick will be back out there. I'm interested too. I mean, we're going to try to wrap things up here before my laptop dies. I'm sure some are like, why don't you have this thing plugged in? Well, we usually do an hour-long show. We're over 2 hours right now, giving you guys the overtime here because I'm sure some of you guys are coming in from the bar or still up drinking. Let me know what your predictions were going into the season. Regular season, that is. I had South Carolina winning 8 games. Not exactly the way I had them getting here by any means. But wow. This was a 2-win team. Yeah. Yep. 2 wins. 6 wins combined, 2019, 2020. What recruits were at that game. You can see that on Gamecock Central. There's a long list. I don't want to go through all of it. Chris Clark and my coworker and my colleague, Wes Mitchell, do a tremendous job with that. And there's a long list. You can be able to check that out. Stingray. Kentucky was top 10 when they beat them, right? Beat 2 top 10 teams in Shane's second season. I'm going to go back to double check that for you. If you're talking about Tennessee beat Kentucky when they were 19th. Kentucky, for USC, when they were 13th. So I think that's what you meant. 2 top 13 wins. How about that? Not 2 top 10, but 2 top 13. With Kentucky being 13th when you played them back on October 9th. You will play Clemson next week. I don't know what has happened in the world of college football. I know that Oregon right now is leading Utah 20-17. And when I say the world of college football, I'm talking about some of these other games that have gone on today. Trying to do a quick look for you guys. LSU was one. I mean, there really wasn't too many matchups. Southern Cal, big win over UCLA, 48-45. So I bring these things up because Clemson And I know the one that matters the most, the college football playoff ranking. Clemson will probably move up 1 to 8. I can't see them moving up more than that unless I missed the game. If there was an upset that I missed, but I think they'll move up to 8 because Tennessee 5. You would assume they'll fall out of the top 10. So you'll have an opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to beat two top 10 teams. Brendan, wonder if Rattler held on to the game ball. Oh yeah. I didn't see the Instagram live that he did. But judging by the reaction on the field, they were not going to let that go. What's God say? God loves comics. Even worry when he committed to Clemson is on the clock. Yep. And the fans were chanting it. We want Clemson. And I've said this before. The gap between South Carolina and Clemson, this goes back to 2 years ago and then this past summer. If anyone went out to Steel Hands for the Steel Hands camp, and they have all the Clemson football players go up against South Carolina. I think Wofford was also in it this year, and I was emceeing it. And sorry, guys, scratching my nose here, stuffy. This cold weather up here in Boston. But I mentioned how the gap between South Carolina and Clemson, how I believe that it's shrunk. The issue is, I don't know, and I don't think any of us really know what that gap size is right now. I think a couple of years ago, just throwing something out for reference, when when Deshaun Watson was there, they won the national championship. The first time, I know it was their second time in school history, but the first time in the Dabo era, it's probably like 2 ocean size, like how large it was from South Carolina. And then it's been pretty big over the last couple of years. I do believe the gap between South Carolina and Clemson has shrunk. The problem is, I think you're naive to say, okay, how big that gap is. We'll find out in a week. I think a lot of people thought it shrunk going into last year's game, and I think it did a little bit. I know the results didn't show that. But I think Clemson fans would even tell you from a talent standpoint of where they're at, they're still a very talented team. It's still going to be very difficult to beat that team. Really good defense, much better defense that you'll see next week compared to what you saw tonight. But I do feel like that that gap has shrunk down just a little. I don't know what it is. Could be a Mack truck. Could be I don't know. But I don't think it's as big. And, Clemson fans, hear me out. You mentioned Nick Harbor. Yep. I'm sure Nick enjoyed this one. Haven't seen his social media tonight. Hayes Sanders and Steven Garcia, they came out. It'd be nice. I've mentioned this before with Dante Reno. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Spencer Rattler. I know some people have been asking, will Reno reclassify? Right now, he's committed to the class of 2024, meaning he'd come back next year. He's a junior right now. But I would not rule it out. What is it? Sunday, November 20th. If Spencer Rattler is not back at South Carolina next year, I would not be shocked if Dante Reno reclassifies. Not be shocked. So save this. You can tweet it at me in a couple of weeks, months, whatever. If it happens, be like, you said it, Mike. There's something to keep an eye on. But if Rattler does stay, I think Reno will stay for 2024. What a freaking game. No question about it. That to carry on. Sweet pass to Rattler. It's used against Clemson in 2009. Steven Garcia threw that one. I'll have to reach out to Garcia. I'm sure that put a smile on his face. Sky Moore, not sure. I know you guys sometimes have conversations in the comment section, and I don't see everything in real time, so I'm not sure how that got brought up, Sky Moore. Look, bottom line is this. You have an opportunity now to win 8 games in the regular season. I think after the win against Florida, if that had happened, right? Obviously it didn't. you would have got to 7 wins. And I think a lot of people would have still said the same thing. Not giving them a shot against Tennessee, not giving them a shot against Clemson. But because you go out here and you do what you did tonight, you have more credibility, I feel like. And as Brandon says, giving Rattler way more credit than Sat. Stingray. I think you meant Sat. He said Sar. Sat called the game, but he definitely didn't run the scheme, and he's been trying to push all year. Again, I'm going to look into everything, find out some things for you, but I'm under the impression, I know Beamer mentioned it, but unless I find out otherwise, I'm under the impression that Satterfield called the offense tonight. Fans shut down the bad officiating. I was speechless when they started a fair game. What's a water? Never heard of her. Speaking of her, I know my girlfriend's watching down in South Carolina, keeping the condo on lockdown. Hopefully my drinks are there. And it was girls' night over there. So I don't know if she's still watching tonight, but hopefully my mini bar is still there. Yeah, I heard about that. Never a good look. And I think now I got what you're talking about, Brand. I'm putting 2 and 2 together now. Yeah, it's never a good look. It's never a good look. Don't need that. State law says we have to play Clemson. That's not true. And Lynn, I'm not trying to pick on you. That is not a true law. And the reason why I know that is when I was at Watch Fox during the COVID year, that was something that I actually spent more time on than I should have. And if that year proved anything, it proved that that's not the case. They tried to push that to be a law, but it is not a law. That is a myth. There is no law for South Carolina having to play Clemson. I would love for that rivalry to stay around as long as humanly possible because we don't know what's going to happen with the future of the SEC. Do they go to an all-conference schedule, which is a possibility? They might get rid of some of these cupcake games, if you will. And then, of course, the opportunity to go out and schedule an opponent of your choice that's a little bit tougher, which could be Clemson if it's a rivalry outside of the conference. But unfortunately, no, there is no state law, at least as of now. Don't choke on that Tennessee whiskey. Try not to. My nose is more stuffy than anything else. That's why I keep scratching. I'm not picking it. I'm not doing the Seinfeld. If you guys remember that episode, he was scratching his nose, and the girl pulls up, and she just would not return Jerry's call because she thought he was a nose picker. Just very cold up here. Nose is starting to get stuffy already. What up? What up, Matthew? Stingray says the targeting and yeah, I understand. I understand the frustration with the Nick Eamon worry hit. Again, as we mentioned before, it's one of those things that, again, as a former defensive back, I'm always going to side with the DB 9 times out of 10. And I still feel like I'm siding with Nick here for the most part. I think it's just the letter of the law. I think it was the right call. It was the right call. It sucks. And as I mentioned before, I wish in college football with targeting, I wish there was like a flagrant 1, flagrant 2, like they do in basketball with targeting, like targeting 1, targeting 2. He shouldn't have been ejected. I hate that. But based on the letter of the law, I think it was the right call. Sorry. Sorry. Bree. Mike, go to sleep. Bree, I want to enjoy this evening. I know we're on 2 hour, 2:20. And the crazy thing is I got to upload this. God, my nose is going to fall off in 2 minutes. I got to upload this before I go to sleep. Then I got to be at Gillette Stadium at 10 a.m. Patriots play the Jets tomorrow. Patriots beat the Jets 13 times in a row, by the way, for any Jets fans out there. Also got to write a script for that. Just reminded me. Looks like we're not going to get any sleep tonight. Young Judah. Great post-game show, Mike. I appreciate it. I really do. As I've told you guys before, living out this dream of being able to cover the Patriots and these Boston sports teams that I grew up cheering for when I was younger, much different now. Bill Belichick, I think, is the only one that's really around still from my childhood for the most part. I'm like doing post-game shows with Patriot players that I grew up following when Brady and them were winning Super Bowls. It's been cool, but SEC football has a very, very, very special spot in my heart. Very special spot. I'm very grateful for Brian Shoemaker for allowing me to juggle both this fall with Gamecock Central, and also a shout out to WBZ for allowing me to do it as well. And management letting me do it. Yeah, we're going to be up all night, Lady Bree. And on Tuesday, if you do have the time, and again, I can't remember if you said that you were going through a job interview process or you're going through it still, but I wish you the best of luck with that. Hopefully you call in on Tuesday. We can talk some more. And I apologize that I cut you off a little bit earlier tonight than I usually do, because I know you got a lot of good things to say. Keith, from where we were 2 years ago, I still don't understand why fans have been such down. It's just fans, Keith. It's just fans. I see it up here in Boston. I remember growing up here when the Patriots are winning 12, 13, 14 games a year. I mean, it's not the same, but look at Alabama. They're having what they would be, would be considered a down year, 2 losses this year. No one was at that game against Austin Peay today. No one. It was embarrassing. I can only imagine what Nick Saban said in the post-game press conference. It's consistency. I mean, I'm in a group chat with some buddies. Some of them are Gamecock alum. And, I mean, even some of them tonight, before they didn't want to give any credit. They went MIA. They went MIA as soon as South Carolina started doing well. Like, I get it. I get it. Let's see. Today's matchups were not supposed to be what they turned out. No question about it. I don't know how many times more I can say that. Try to keep going through some of these things, these comments. The version of Rattler. This is what everyone was hoping for when they saw Spencer Rattler commit to South Carolina. This is what they were looking for. Got to start with belief. And I think we all do now. And you hope you don't lay an egg against Clemson. I'm not trying to be negative Nancy here, but you hope you don't lay an egg, because you've seen this team come out flat, whether it be against Missouri, whether it be especially against Florida. You can even go back to last year, but last year's last year. When you think about that A&M game. But they've proven that they can have letdowns. No question about it. But a game like tonight should prove, and some of the other games too, like Kentucky win, right? Even the A&M won this year. It should prove what they're capable of doing. I don't want to say the ceiling, but that bar is a little bit higher than where some people have had it. Your mini bar's empty tonight. Yeah, that thing's not going to exist. That thing's not going to exist anymore. Shout out to my girlfriend holding it down. Oh, God, I love that condo. Not too far from the stadium. We'll just put it at that. I've joked with her. I think I love that condo more than I love her. She's a great girl, though. It's not as funny if she's not up still. I don't know if she's mixing in waters right now, because I'm sure her and her friends had a good night. All Gamecock alum. It wasn't a pick. What is up? The debater. You can go to the Gamecock Central YouTube channel, and it will have the post-game show for you. I mean, the press conference for you. Sorry about that. Why would anyone want to take a chance of breaking their neck? I agree with the call. Roger, I get it. I get it. And I've seen my buddy. I mean, he's still in a wheelchair. High school football. This happened over a decade ago. Decade plus. Again, letter of the law, it's the right call. It's the right call. I wish there was an intent, kind of like a flagrant. I don't feel like he should be ejected. That's the only thing. I understand they're trying to eliminate it. I understand. God loves comics. Mike, you do a great job every week, even with all that Tennessee whiskey in you. I promise I'm good. I had a big meal tonight. Big meal. Let's see. Here at the 55-yard line, I can't sleep. Michael Beckham, my good buddy Michael Beckham. I know he's going to be at the RV lot. And when I say that, goodness, Michael, as soon as I say that, you son of a... Brian, Mike is starting to sound like Defoe from Boondocks. I will say this: two things happen, a couple things, three things really. I've been up here longer, so the Boston accent certainly is going to come out more. I've been drinking this. I wouldn't say I'm buzzed or anything like that, but at this platform, I'm okay to do that. Shout out to Gamecock Central and Brian Shoemaker for allowing us to be us. As long as we get our job done, we don't make a buffoon of the company. But it definitely comes out a little bit more, and I have a couple drinks in me. Plus, it's late, and my throat is so freaking scratchy, and my nose, as you guys can tell, I was out in the cold last night, high school football. Shout out to my dad's team. They call it the Super Bowl up here. D1 is the highest. They do it like college, so they're going to the Super Bowl. So congratulations to my dad's team. But we were out there last night covering that in another game, and it was cold. This thing's going to die soon, so I'm going to get off here very shortly, but I want to hit on some of these other things. And Mike, I agree with you. There needs to be calls against off. I remember that. I don't know if it was the NFL or college. I have to go back and take a look at it. That they were, again, I can't remember if it was college or pro. I want to say it was pro. That they were going to enforce a targeting rule for the offense, the crown of the helmet, lowering of the helmet, like not being able to use it as a battering ram. And I bring that up because, as much as I'll always side with the defense, it's like you're a running back. And I understand you're trying to protect, right, the spine. If you get tackled this way, it's going to compress your neck. That's just like, there's things though, like, again, common sense. We're trying to eliminate things. We're trying to make the game safer. I'm so for it. But at the same time, too, how are you're going to run the ball? You're going to run up tight. You're going to have to run down. It's just, I don't know. But I do agree there needs to be something. Got 2% here. We're approaching 2.5 hours. This is our longest post-game show we've ever done. But you know what? Every minute has been well worth it. As we have our Tennessee honey today. The best part is my dad's going to be very disappointed. I took his Tennessee honey tonight because I got all my stuff out of South Carolina still. Mike, how much snow y'all got up there? Miss Carolina yet? No snow yet. I did have to, scrape off my car the other day because of the frost that was on the window. Haven't done that in a long time. He's been drinking that Tennessee whiskey, so he'll break into Rocky Top at any moment. Not going to lie, kind of like the jingle. Na, 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 na. I'm sorry. I just think it's kind of catchy. It's good, though, that it wasn't played as much as it was tonight, though. That's always a good thing. That means even though they did score, it doesn't mean everything went their way tonight. I just like college fight songs, especially the old college football games that had them. I mean, I think there was one year, maybe 2008, 2009, that they had an actual soundtrack in there. It's not as good. I like college fight songs. I love them all. It's a beautiful thing. What's that, Thomas? Can you please take my call? I've tried. Thomas, unfortunately, we're not taking any more calls tonight. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, buddy. We had our intern, Joe. I had him go out. He's a senior. I wanted him to go enjoy the night. So unfortunately, we stopped calls a little while ago. I mean, we're never on 2.5 hours. That's why we're staying on a little bit longer. Just had to close that portion. So I'm sorry, Thomas. But I appreciate you trying to call so much tonight. Wrap things up before this computer dies on me. Any thoughts on why so many of the short passes, screens, etc. work so much better tonight than in previous weeks? Were they called at better times or just executed better? It's a great question. I think it's difficult to just say without looking at the tape. I mean, the first thing that just comes to mind, as someone that's played college ball and been around the game for so long and seen more than anything, just seen this offense. I think the feel of the game, the flow of the game was just much better. No question about it. That the competition in terms of the struggles that Clemson has had. I've seen the comment section here from Thomas. Trying to read it as I'm speaking, saying something else. The struggles that Tennessee's defense has had from a passing defense standpoint, 7th worst in the country coming into tonight. South Carolina was able to exploit it. Because when you think about pass defense, I think a lot of people think vertical, right? It's not just vertical. It's not just Northwest. We saw that tonight. They took advantage of it with a lot of the short passes. We've seen them do that throughout the course of the season. What they did a really good job of tonight, and they have at other times too. And I'll put this one up too for you, Thomas. Your granddad in heaven couldn't be celebrating more tonight. Shout out to your granddad, Thomas. But the stock blocking was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. We're going to end it, guys. Things about to die right now. Appreciate everyone. Joe's at the bottom of the mosh pit in 5 points. Appreciate everyone that tuned in tonight. 2.5 hours. If you missed any of it, Gamecock YouTube channel and also on Gamecock's podcast platform. It's going to end it here tonight. Mix in some waters. Everyone have a safe weekend, and we will do it again on Tuesday night for GC Live, Talking Tuesday Nights.